Hey everyone. So we are now live. Oh, you get a preview. Forgot this was here. Preview on some books we're working on. A books package with high quality books, hopefully with animations that will see the pages opening and whatnot. But that's not what this stream is about. This stream is about making an inventory system. As some of you may know, I've been working on this role-playing game for years and years and years and years and years. And as part of this, there's lots of different things and systems that are required. And so I've been building these modules for this game and for your games because, one, it keeps me honest with my coding, helps me learn new things, but also it helps other people do their stuff. Hey, Artwin, how are you? And so this is the project. I'm showing this just so the people who see the video see something pretty at the beginning, because I have to say, the module itself is just white and gray boxes, maybe some brown boxes as well for now. But the whole point is that when you load up your inventory, there'll be something like this, a grid system, where you'll see wardrobe. You'll click, drag that onto your body here, and you'll see it added onto your avatar. You could drag it down here and switch between people so you can give inventory to somebody else. And if you're holding one, you can drag it here and click and throw it away. So if you want to drop something, you can just physically drop something like that. That's what the inventory system is meant to do. And I've got another example to show you. The inspiration comes from Might and Magic 6 and 7 and 8, I think, maybe even 9. But where, you know, this is a YouTube video of somebody playing it where there you can click and drag, and yeah, you can see that, clicking and dragging and different things. You know, different behaviors. I know in this game, when you right click onto an empty bottle and you're holding an herb, you can make one of those potions. Or if you're holding a colored potion and you right click onto another potion, you can combine the two. So there's various additional logic that can be added to the system. But instead what I'm building is the basics. There's the throwing away option there. And so I'm basically building a modular system, a flexible system that gives you the basic framework for this and has all the different methods and classes where you could add additional content if you so choose, if you need that for your game. And I'm going to probably add some stuff like the potion making, similar to this game, into mine as well. But that functionality is not going to be built in explicitly in the inventory system, but rather implicitly where you can add it at any given time. And yes, Artwin, I'm doing good too. I'm feeling good. It's Saturday. I get to live stream. That's fun. So this is what the inventory system looks like right now. It's pretty bare bones. So this, we'll just press play here. The system here, if I press control, I can move around. This is the basic first person component or module that we put out. Very basic movement. Again, it gives you the basics. You can add on to it, so if you so choose. We can select the different players by tapping. You see I've got some debug logs with fancy colors here just to help me with the coding. You can also click on the portraits, and then if you want, you can open up them by clicking on one that's selected, or escape to close, and then if one's already selected, if I tap one, it opens up. This is the inventory. We can actually ignore all these. These were my test ones, but the basic structure is here. What you don't really see is all these grid buttons. So there's a grid here, and when I click one, clear the console there, you can see that there's something got clicked, no item held. So I'm going to delete these. These were extra debugs I don't need. What I've been doing is adding the colorful debug ones where I'm going to keep them in the module, and there's going to be a toggle so you can turn the debug on and off. Because I know not everybody wants debug logs there, but it will help to figure out where certain things occur. And those are the places where you'd add your own custom code. So let me just restart that now that I deleted those two extra debugs. So the other thing we have is we've got the inventory system set up. So on the players, so let me just close this out. There's two sides of this component. There's the inventory panels themselves. And you know what? Let me just. This is going to keep annoying me. I'm going to delete these. This was just there for testing purposes. And that has to start closed. So there's two parts of this. There is the inventory panel itself. Now in this case, this is going to be the player inventory, but an inventory panel can be really anything that holds items. It could be a box or a treasure box. It could be a barrel. Could be the drawer of a chest or a wardrobe. It could be anything. It could be the stuff on a bed for if you really wanted it to, and then display that stuff on the bed. All of that is possible with this. Each one of those would be its own inventory panel. And then the other side is the control side. So we got the two demo bits here. This is in the namespace Infinity PBR inventory demo. We have the control and we have the data. And the data is basically just holding some dummy data for the player. Every player has an items. This is from the item module. So this does require, hey Joseph, hey Aaron, how you doing? This does require the items in the dictionary module, so it makes use of both of those. So each player will have an items list that we can add to, and equipped items for stuff that's equipped. Likely that's something you would create on your own, depending on how you set up your own inventory and how equipped items work for your game. That's going to be very specific to specific games. And then spots. Spots are a virtual representation of the grid, the inventory grid. We know that this is going to be hard coded. You can change this, I believe, and the inventory should address that. But we know how many rows, how many columns, and then this basically handles what is in what spot. So we're doing YX. The default for Unity's UI is to start at the top left and go left to right, and then top to bottom. So we're doing YX instead of XY. I made that decision simply because I figured more people would understand that than would understand that they need to change the default behavior on all Unity panels or grid objects, auto grid objects. So hopefully that was the right call. But either way, everything's YX. And then inside here, you have a link to the in-game object, if there is one, and a copy, or not a copy, a reference to the item itself. Now this will be a reference to an item in the items list. And we can see that right here if we just add to inventory. Did it work? There we go. And so now you see we have one item here, inventory demo. That's the item. This is the scriptable object. And then we have the object name and all the stuff that we've assigned for that item. And we have a reference to that here. Now this is not a copy. This is not a clone of this. So if I were to change something here, then it should update there. So we'll just change the name to Chain Armor 2. Oh, and it didn't. So it is a copy. Okay. I take that back. It's a clone. But the point is that the spots know what's in each spot. So that when we load up the inventory, there we go. So when we load up the inventory now, we can actually see the chain armor here. This is chain armor, if you didn't know. This gray blob with two gray sleeves is chain armor. Essentially, the inventory panel is passed in. When you open it, the inventory gets passed in the spots from the active player. And it has its own grid, which is, of course, the actual buttons, the physical buttons, these buttons on the grid, which is the UI buttons. And they're linked together through this inventory panel class. And so when you click a button, and I'm going to clear the console right there. So when I click a button here, it says a button was clicked. And then we go into that, it says it got clicked. Okay, so the panel then has a method for grid clicked. And on that method, we do a bunch of things. If we can't put a held item, then we do nothing. And put held item is going to start by saying, right here, if there's no item held, then return false. So essentially we're saying, if you're not holding anything, don't do anything. If there is one that's held, or if we can put a held item, we're just double checking now. The item is held. If not, return. And then we're saying if the spot is filled, then return. Or is not filled, rather. Because at this point, if it's oh, here we go. Sorry, I misspoke. So this would try to put the held item if it was held, if there was a held item. If there wasn't one, then we continue. Now this just confirms that there is no held item. That means the mouse is empty. So if we click the spot, If it's not filled, we can't do anything. There's nothing to pick up. Otherwise, we're going to pick up an object, and so on and so forth. So what that looks like in practice is we can click over here, and now we pick up this object, and it goes around, and we can drop the object, and it drops it wherever we place it. We can also now pass it to another player. So if I click on this player portrait, then it goes over to player 2, and then you can click between these. This is just basically reloading the inventory with the latest spots data. And then from here, I can also just hit number 1 to select that player. In the demo control script, which you can steal from, of course, is the logic for passing that over. And then if I come in here, I can pick up another item. So this is just going to add, these buttons are in the demo are just going to add it to your inventory, but the other buttons will allow you to pick up the item. So now you see it's over here and it's just sitting there, and I can then tap or click one of the players to give it to the player. Now you see there's 2 objects there. So now we can see that we have two objects here. See, I can't fit it over there because it's off the screen. I can put it there. Now if I go over here, you see that it's got the red color there, which you can turn on and off, and of course you can customize the colors and all that. But if I click that, then it's going to put down the one I had and pick up the other one, so you can just switch those out like that. You can also drop here to equip. How you do your equipment, whether it's like the way I'm going to do it, is completely up to you. There's so many different ways to do actual player equipment. That's completely up to you. But in the demo, we just have a button that says drop here to equip, and then once it's equipped, it's no longer on the item list of this player. So when we go back and forth, we're not loading the inventory, and this inventory doesn't even know that this item even exists anymore because it's not part of the inventory. Now it's part of the equipped item list. It's a completely different system. And then when we unequip that, we're basically picking it up again, and then we can drop it off again. And in these cases, all of these cases, what we're doing is cloning the object, the item class data, and then into new objects, and then each one of those will be copied and cloned, rather not copied, cloned every time we place it or pick it up, so that it's always being in only one spot at any one time. So we also have these plate armors. I haven't set up the other stuff yet, so we only have the 3 to work with. So we're going to pick up a few of these. Oh yeah, I should show that other thing. If you're over here and you click, then it gets thrown into the world. So essentially, if you're trying to remove things, or if you just pick something up and you're like, I don't want this plate armor, it's too big. So you can just click it and then it's thrown. In your game, then you can, of course, do some logic where if you click it, you pick it up again, or if you press space, if you're close enough, you pick it up again. However your game works, that's essentially up to you to decide. But that's what you can do here. And then if you can't fit in the selected inventory, how, we have this right here, and this is why I'm keeping these debug logs here. There's going to be a toggle so you can turn them on and off. But it's important because what happens when you can't fit in the inventory? In the demo right now, nothing happens. It just says you just return. You can't. It doesn't fit, so return. But perhaps your game, and maybe I'll add this to the demo too, would say that, hey, if it can't fit here, then pick it up. So it's just floating. And now the player has to choose. Okay, it can't fit there. Can it fit here? Oh, it can. Okay. And then, oops. So if we add a whole bunch here, and so let's say that player 1 and 2 are both full. So if we look at them, their inventories are just chock full of stuff. If I then pick up another chain armor, and then I'd be like, oh, I could put it there. Okay, there was room there. Well, that ruined my demo. Okay, let's say I pick up another chain armor. Oh, can't put it there, so it loads up here. It looks like we got a sort of a bug there. And, oh, can't put it here, because otherwise it would have just put it there, so it's just loading the inventory. Can't put it there. How about here? Ah, okay, I could put it there. Similarly, it can test tap. Oh, can't put it there. Can't fit. Oh, 3. Okay, that worked. So there's a lot of ways you can customize this, but the essential module part is this whole system of being able to pick up, drag, move around, drop, pick up again in various ways. And all of these are, of course, there's no DRM here. That's all public methods, so you can click into these and say, okay, we'll try to pick up and see what happens when you try to pick up. I'm doing my best to provide plenty of comments and code that's human readable, like if you can't give the held object, return false. that means if you can give it, it did something else, and that's true what here. If it is able to give the held object, it will return true, and it will also give the held object at the same time. So that's basically what we're doing. Where I last left off, which is where I'd like to continue today, is doing this. I just saw a blip when that picked up, and there was like a blip. But so I don't know if that blip was, there was a blip over here. But so something that I was looking at, I like this concept of being able to see, the green and the red. Something you could turn off if you don't like that. And you can, of course, customize the colors and all that. But I like that concept. But the fact is I can actually drop this here. The system will let me, it's probably easier if I use a different color armor. So the system will let me drop the armor there. As long as there's only one item, it will let you drop it. If there's two items, so if I go here, I can't drop it there because I can't pick up two items at once. But if I move right over here, then I can pick it up. So it's cool that it's showing me red where something's filled. But the reality is, I think in a game situation, I want to show red and green, or whatever the affirmative and negative visual response is. I want that to be like, hey, can I drop this here or can I not? Like if you're doing a tablet game or a mobile game and the player's moving their finger around, it's nice to be able to see the visual. Oh yes, everything's green. I can drop it here. Even though if I do drop it here, oh, now I've got this picked up. So I think what I was doing when last I coded, which was actually a little bit earlier this morning before I had to make waffles, was, where was it? Grid buttons. I was doing this part where this is the set hover group. So every grid button is going to go through the set hover group, and each grid button, just to walk through the logic of how this is set up, each grid button is itself a UI button using the UI system, which is convenient. And it has its own little grid button script, and the grid button script has some methods on it, like saying the button color, gain the screen point that it's on. That's helpful for knowing just stuff about the position of it. Saying the screen point, start hover, stop hover, and got clicked. These are the UI methods that we're using. And the got clicked is just through the button here. And it just says, hey, I got clicked. And then the event trigger uses the start hover and stop hover for when the pointer is entering and exiting. And so that just knows that, hey, this button is being hovered on. And then when each button goes through in late update, during regular update, it sets that its hover group is false. In other words, it's not in a hover group, a group of objects or buttons rather that's being hovered over because of a picked up item. And then this new one that I haven't implemented yet really is the can place hover group. And so that's set both of those to false, but then late update, we're going to set hover group. Now this is only going to trigger on one of the buttons, because there's only one button at a time where something can be hovering. So if it's not hovering, it does nothing at all. But for one of the buttons, potentially it could be hovering. And if it does, then it's going to find the height and width of the item. And this is set up through the dictionaries module, which is added to the items where there's custom. I'll actually show that right now while I'm talking about it. In the items module, we have all of these items that I've set up. So chain armor, leather armor, plate armor. And in the dictionaries, there is a... Why isn't it showing? That's interesting. It should be showing. Oh, okay. Well, the values are there. Inventory width and inventory height. It looks like I may have an issue where these get turned off, because the values are definitely there, and you can see them here now. So I'll fix that in the... It looks like a bug with the dictionaries module, or maybe my main code, but the bug is that these, which just toggle whether or not they show here, it doesn't actually change the data, didn't seem to have serialized properly. But regardless, the point is that each one of these has its own height and width as a custom dictionary item, or value, key value pair, through the dictionaries module on the items, and that's how we're using those two together. Inventory width, inventory height, and that gets passed into the scripts in various ways. In this case, we're getting the width as height. If either are 0 for some reason, then we're just going to return, because that's going to cause problems. They can't be 0. It has to be at least 1. And then for each button in this, we're going to basically, the panel has an option to get the grid buttons with a start and corner, an X and Y start, and then height and width. And it's going to return all the grid buttons in that group. And then for each one, we're going to tell that, hey, you're in the hover group. And then if this is this other option in the control section down here, compute can place on hover group. And that's essentially going to say, okay, if you're not going to compute it, you're going to see what we've been seeing, where it just shows green if it's empty, red if it's full. But if I want to instead show green if I can place the item and red if I can't place the item, then I'm going to toggle that on, and that's what we're going to do here. So first we set things are in the hover group, and next the stuff we're going to do now is going to say, hey, we're first discover if there's more than one object. If so, then you can't place the item. It doesn't matter anything else. And then we're going to check to see if we can place it there. Essentially, are we able to either pick up that one object, or there's no object, and place the object down? And if not, it's going to return false. And then we're going to mark that for each of the other buttons. And then each of the other buttons has this set button color. And it goes through the logic of simply, if there is no button and no image, then return. Otherwise, if there's no item being held, that's the floating weapon or armor or whatnot, and it's not in a hover group, then we're just going to return whether or not it's filled. So in my case, it's got this darker color for filled, lighter color, or no color at all really for not filled, and then return. And if that's not the case, if that didn't trigger, then we're going to say, okay, if it's filled, then unavailable color, otherwise show the available color. And this simply means that, hey, if we've reached here, that means that we're either in a hover group or and an item is being held. So we're going to add some code there to handle this whole can place on hover group logic as well. So let's get right to that. So we've got some methods I already have created, I believe, on whether we have one object. So let's see if I can remember that. Let's see. Panel dot number count. I don't know. Let's go back. It could be in the spots as well. So panel is the actual physical panel, and spots is the list of objects. So it could actually be the spots that I'm looking for. This one will return whether all spots in a group are empty, with the option of ignoring a single object. Items in spot group, that's what I'm looking for here. So this is going to return, what is this, a tuple or something like that, where it returns 2 values. So in my grid button, I'm going to go to panel.spots, .items in spot group, and we're going to pass in our X and Y values. In this case, the grid knows its X and Y values, and we're going to pass in the height of the object and the width of the object. And what we need, though, we need an int number of objects. And we're just going to say it's 0. And then what else does this pass through? This is going to give us our inventory spot. It's going to give us the first inventory spot. Do we need the inventory spot for this one? We might. We might not, but let's see. Inventory spot, first spot, and we'll just equals null. And then we will return both of those. So number of objects and first spot is going to be equal to panel, spots, all that. This is telling me I not used, these values aren't used. So what we're really going to see here is if number of spots is greater than 1, then return. Number of objects, not number of spots. We're not actually going to return, though. We need to set everything to false, though. If it's greater than 1, then we're going to we'll hard code this for now. For each spot, we're going to say, what do we say? Can place hover group. Can place hover group equals false. Essentially what we're saying here is, oh, and we should say spot dot. All right, for each, hey, how come this is, oh, it's not spot we're looking for, it's buttons. This is the one I should have copy pasted in here. Can place hover group equals false. So essentially what we're doing here, we're trying to find out if there's more than one object. And if there is, then we're going to tell all of these buttons, all the actual UI buttons, that the can place hover group boolean is false, which means that it's being hovered on. It's part of a group that's being hovered on, and the player can't actually place the object there. And so essentially we're going to turn the color to be red in that case. Otherwise the color might be green. All right. And then we're going to return if that's the case as well. We're done there. And then if the number of objects is 1 or 0, then we will find out if we can place the object. And so we're going to go to panel.spots.canFitItem. We'll return the x and y indexes if the item can fit. Nope, that's not what we want. That's just going to be, can we fit it anywhere? We'll return true if the item can fit in a starting grid row spot. This can fit item, and we're going to pass in the x, or the y and the x, and then the height and the width. And then we are going to pass in the ignore this object, because if there was an object here passed through, then we want to ignore it. Because we know that, and game in-game object. And hold on one second. If that, then something. All right. Why is this still broken? Int. Oh, we're supposed to pass an item. Oh, okay. Should I make an override method for this, or should I just change it? I could do an override method, maybe. Let's see. Is that right? That's what it's called. Where we say int starting y and starting x. Oops, that's supposed to be an int. And then we will say, yeah, so we'll change this to height and width and xc and yc to keep our consistency there. And then we don't need to do that. All right, so this is basically going to pass in the starting coordinates and the height and the width and the game object that we're ignoring, a specific object. And then all spots are empty. This is going to take those same values. We probably could have just called this one, I suppose. Yeah, why don't we just call this one? Yeah, we should just call that one. So let's go back to grid buttons, and we'll just say all spots are empty. So if all spots are empty while we ignore this specific object, that means we can place the object. And if that's the case, then all we need to do is set these to true, saying, hey, you're in the hover group, and we're saying the player can place the object. And that's what we did here, and we can ignore that. Technically, this should work now. And the only other thing we need to do is add the logic for the color itself, and to clean this up, because I think we can make this a little smaller. So what we can do is bool can place object, and we're going to say equals. We'll just say nothing, and then if the number of objects is greater than 1, then can place object equals false. And then if this, then can place object equals true. Otherwise we can't. Actually, this is going to return a true or false. So of course we could just say can place object equals that. That's even easier. There we go. And we have an extra one. All right, so what we're saying is setting up the can place object, and it's going to be false by default. So do we even need this? I don't think we even need this line right here, because essentially it starts off at false, so this line doesn't matter. Because we're still going to check this, and all spots are empty. If we go drill down into this, it's going to go through each spot and say if it's filled, we're going to continue. Oh, if it's not filled, continue. Because what we're looking for is whether it's empty. So if it is empty, continued, that's fine. If we're ignoring this object, if we're not ignoring this object, then return false. In other words, we're not ignoring any object, and therefore this one's filled, so we have to say all spots are not empty. However, if we are ignoring some object, if this is not null, then we're going to check, is the in-game object the one we're ignoring? Then if so, or if it's not, then we're going to return false. If it is, then it's going to continue with the loop. In other words, keep ignoring that object. So this will return false if there's more than one object. So essentially, that means we can avoid one step. So we can avoid one step. I don't know if there's any, I don't know if one's faster than the other. I don't think it matters in this case. None of these are drastically taxing on any system, I imagine. The other option is number, what was it? Number of objects. It's doing the same thing. It's going through a loop still, and it's just counting them all. So I think it's a wash either way. But realistically, I think that means we can cut this out entirely. And I'm just going to comment it out just in case I'm completely wrong, but I don't think I am here. And we can just say bool can place object equals that. And if that's the case, do we even need number of objects in first spot? We do need first spot because we need to know whether or not we are what object that's already in the inventory to replace. So we do have to do this. Okay, that is required. And since we are going to get number of objects anyways, we might as well keep this in. Okay, so we'll keep this in because even though there's not much resource use on either of these methods, they're not terribly taxing. No grid is likely going to, I guess it could be a grid with thousands of objects, but in these use cases, no grid is going to have more than 150 or 200 objects or something like that. So it's not taxing either way, but we do need to find this first spot, the inventory of that spot. And since we need to do that, we're also getting the number of objects. Since we're getting number of objects already, we'll just call this because we can stop the rest of the method if we have more than one object. So we will call that. And then can place objects, we're just going to say, hey, if all spots are empty while ignoring this first, then yes, we can place the object. And then what we really only other thing, we can get rid of all of that and just say each one of these is going to be true or false. And I can even get rid of these. Whoops. There we go. So for each button, can place hover group is true or false. That's much smaller. I can even put these down too. Much smaller. And I can even go further just to skinny these up. All right. That's much better. I like that more. So that should work. And the other thing we need to do is say in the button color. So right now what we're doing is if there's nothing returning, if there's no image or button, then there's nothing to do. If we're not holding an item and we're not in a hover group, either way, then we're just going to turn the filled or empty color. And in this game, it's this dark color or no color at all, or in this demo. and then return. So that's the end of that. If though we are either we're in a hover group and an item is being held, then we're going to continue. So what we need to do now is say in one case we have the control system here has show color on hover, and the other one is compute can place hover on color. So we need to do two things. First, I'm going to turn this one off. Let's start with the first. I believe, let me turn it off here because I was in play mode. I believe we need to update the code a little bit. Yep, because we want to show hover. Okay, let's turn it off. All right. Okay, good. So it's working there. We're not showing color on hover, so there's no color showing on hover. So if you want, you can do it like that. Otherwise, have that turned on and it shows on color. Now what we want is this new system to be put in place, and we don't have that yet. We also have all these null references. So can place object. Oh, interesting. Okay, so we need to, this is causing the null reference, and so what we need to do is pass this first spot, and we say game object first object equals null or equals null. Shoot. Would that work? So we got sidetracked by a null reference exception. It's exceptional. Add a couple, bring this up, null reference exception. So what's essentially happening is saying, hey, there's no in-game object on the first spot. So we're going to say if we're going to start out this is null, and then if first spot dot in-game object, then first object equals first spot dot in-game object. Otherwise, it will remain null, and we'll just pass null into this method right here, which is perfectly fine. Let's see if that works. Clicky, clicky, open. Whoops, not that. Move around. Null ref. Hey, look at that. We got an issue. Something with. Well, that's weird. I'm not sure what that means, but we definitely have some issues here. So let's see. Same deal. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I'm thinking about this all wrong. All wrong, all wrong, all wrong. Because inventory spot is going to be null. Duh. So ignore that. What we really need to do is say if, or we'll just do this. First spot, and then if it is there, then we'll do first spot dot in game object. Otherwise, null, and equals does not equal null. So if what is this still in? Merge conditional expression. What does that mean? Oh, interesting. So I've learned something new today. Pay attention, all you 6 people who are watching. Apparently, I was doing this first spot. If first spot does not equal null, then pass in the in-game object. Otherwise, pass in null. However, Ryder was telling me that I can merge a conditional expression, which now looks like that. So I'm going to just copy this, put in the comments here, and then we'll do that again because this is the first time I'm seeing this and I want to understand it. First spot, question mark. I guess that's saying, hey, is the first spot null? If so, or if we have, maybe it's saying if we have the first spot, then pass an in-game object, otherwise null. That's cool. It's shorter. So I guess we'd use that anytime we want to do whether something's basically null or not null. And again, I've said this before, but it reminds me of the Silicon Valley episode. hot dog, not hot dog. So null or not null. If it's not null, then pass in that. Whoa, not that. So true, pass that. False, do nothing, which is null. That's neat. Okay, let's see if that also solves our problems. Add to inventory, a couple things, pick them up. Aha, it solved our problems. So, but it didn't solve, we still have to fix this compute can place on hover group. What? We did have an issue. Why is this is in a completely different place, isn't it? Spots, 54. When did we hit that? Let's see. Did we hit that when we were inside or outside? Outside, that's when we hit it. We hit that when we're outside of the grid, and that makes sense that we would hit it there, I suppose, because we are not checking to see if we are over the grid. So I actually have a bit of code that I think solves for this elsewhere. Where did I put that? I think that was on the panel. The idea is that I want to get the information back, but clamp. There we go. But I want to make sure that it's going to stay within the bounds of the grid itself. So in this case, we're passing in the height and width starting at these values. It could be that means this is off the grid, but we don't care that it's off the grid per se. We just want to make sure we're not going to try to reach anything that's off the grid. And so if the height or width would push these off the grid, we need to clamp those down. And so we're going to clamp the height to between minimum of 0 and maximum of the grid size, which is really going to be rows and columns at this point. So y is columns, and this is going to be rows. And that should solve our problem, basically saying, hey, if I pass in 11 on the, right up here, we'll say 11, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if I pass in 10, and I say it's 2, then it's going to be here to here, and that, I believe it says here to here, yeah, because it's 10 plus 2 equals 12, so 1, 2, 3, 4, the 12th one. I think that is how the logic works. If you follow me, which it's okay if you didn't, because I barely follow myself. All right, let's try that out. Good, it didn't throw an error. All right, good. Oh, there it did throw an error. Oh, let's see. I think I know why. Do you know why? I think I know why. Should I give you 5 seconds to guess if anyone's paying attention actively? Why did I get the error? I don't get the error over here. Oh, I do get the error down here. Okay, that's interesting. Wasn't expecting that. Honestly, I don't get it here. I don't get it here. Oh, well, you should have guessed because I was wrong. I thought I was going like negative over here, but that's not the case. It's this direction. Okay, so I don't get it on this, but I do get it on here. So let's see. What's going on here? 58. Interesting. So why is this? Let's just do some debugs here. Debug.log, and we'll do x or y and x because that's the structure we're doing. So we'll do a yn plus / xn. All right, and then we'll get debug.log height width equals height width. And I need a plus sign in there. Symbol. I'm also going to do the same up here before we clamp it so we can see the change. Just to visualize the issue. All right, so we're seeing, let me not collapse it. Okay. So in the last 3 lines of the console, I'm not going to move my mouse, so you can have to look to the bottom right of the screen. The last 3 lines, we're seeing the height and width is 4, 3, and then after it's clamped, it's 4, 0. That doesn't make any sense. And then -1. So we got a bug there. For sure, because it shouldn't be negative anything. So let's start with that bug. All right. So when it was negative, let's find that. Maybe now's a good time to collapse then. Okay. It didn't stay where I was. Okay, let's just find a negative. Negative, 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 negative. Okay, there's some. All right. So it started out 4, 3, which is correct. That's the 4 up and down, 3 left to right. We are in the top row, 10 over. So it should pass in 4, which is fine, because what we're saying here is, let me expose that. What we're saying is, okay, we got the height 4, 3 width, and then the height's going to be a clamp between 0 and columns, which is the number of columns, minus, that's why, minus yn, minus the start. So the maximum that the height can be in this case is going to be number of columns, I believe that's 12, minus yn, which is 1. So this can be maximum of 11 wide. Essentially saying, hey, if I'm on 1, I can add 11, and that gets me to 12, you're okay. But if it's above that, then you need to clamp that down. So what we're seeing, though, is that the width is being clamped to a negative number, which shouldn't be the case. Rows, and we probably should do a debug log for rows and columns, just to make sure. Columns is the... Oh, that could be why. Rows and columns. So what I did basically was I was about to type in that height is rows, and that's not the true case. Or that is the case. I was going to do the opposite. So I just did it again. The number of rows is the height, and the number of columns is the width. And I had those flipped around. So I'm going to put those debugs there, just in case I'm still wrong, which has happened before. And otherwise, all right, let's see. All right. Any issues? Any issues? Good. No issues. So it's saying, yes, can't put it there, but that's a green spot. But we're not getting any issues. So that's good. All right. So let me just remove all these debugs. We don't need these anymore. We have solved that problem that popped up, and now we need to do this color thing. So assuming that we are passing through CanPlace hover group appropriately, we need to do a couple things. So we're still going to do this. That's still the case. Now, whether we do this or another option is dependent on whether whether or not we have that option set. So in panel manager dot compute, if that's the case, then we're going to do one thing, and otherwise we'll do that. So, and then we'll return here. So if that's the case, then image color is going to be, let's see, not is filled, but is, what did I say? CanPlace hover group. CanPlace hover group. And I'm going to say, I'll keep unavailable to available. Let's see if that works. Add a couple of items. Can't place it just fine. Oh, we can't place it there. Oh, can't place it there. Oh yeah, we can place it here just fine. Oh, what? Oh, we picked it up. I see. Oh, look at that. So it's totally working. You know that feeling when you do something and, barring some other random things, it just works? That's a good feeling, isn't it? Let's see if this works here. I can place it there. I can't place it here. Look at that. So, there you go. So now we know we're giving the player feedback on whether or not if they drop it here, it would work or not. So there we go. That's cool. All right, high fives all around. That's exciting. And now there's the next step. So this is the player inventory. This might be a bigger challenge. So I did some work the other night to set the stage for this because some of my let me explain let me show the code. So I'm using these static references to the various classes up here, like the panel, or we'll say maybe not spots. Where's one? Control here. So control is part of the demo namespace, inventory demo namespace, because this is really only used for the demo. You can of course steal from it. Feel free to take what makes sense, but I do expect that you'll probably need to do a lot of your own custom connections to make this work. But there's a static control object here that at await gets set to itself, and then on other scripts we're adding these up here. Shout out to Jason Booth, who taught me this wonderful technique that I can't believe I ever lived without, and now I'm probably using way too much. But I'm okay with it because it works really well right now, for this at least, where we have using these static things. Now, previously, I had the panel set to one of these as well. And so now if you look at it, though, it's not. And the reason being is that there can be multiple panels on the screen. So you can't have just one panel on the screen at any one time. You can have only one demo control and only one demo data. And you can only have one on-screen item. You can't have two at the same time. I suppose you could modify this script to make it two, but for the purposes of the script, you can only have one. So those are perfect use cases for this, so that now when I want to say on-screen item, all I really have to do is say on-screen item is held. I don't have to worry about assigning a link to it in the script because I know there's just always this link there. And that's great. It's been super helpful, super efficient, and all this great stuff. But panel couldn't be set like that because panel is not static. There can be multiple panels. And the reason being, I've got my inventory here, but what happens if I have a box? And so let's create a box. Let's see. Environment, etc. We'll just do that here. Create a 3D object, a cube. We'll call this treasure box. And we will give it a color. We have some materials here. I'm just going to give it a brown material because it's a treasure box. And we'll put it up here on this little hump. All right, so there's a treasure box here. What happens if this treasure box has an inventory of itself, right? And if I open that up, I want to see the inventory, but then I want to perhaps take something from my own inventory and put it in the box. So now there's a chance that I'm going to have two inventories that I want to go between. Now they're not going to be displayed on the same screen, right? So technically you could work that static method out, but it's going to be confusing and you're probably going to get into some issues. So instead of doing the static, I've got on the required scripts, the panel manager. Now I've hard coded the inventory panel because I know for this demo, the inventory panel for the player is always going to be there. But the panels for the boxes, those are going to come and go. And I think what I'm going to end up doing is making this a prefab so that when you open a box, it's going to bring in the prefab underneath this canvas object. And then it's going to add it to the panel manager as another panel. And allow the player in some way to toggle between them. So when we open the box, we'll see the box panel, right? But then if we double click on the player, we'll see the player panel, and the box panel will hide for a short while. That'll give the player the opportunity to maybe pick up an object from their inventory, and then to drop it onto, close off their inventory, and then drop it, because it's being held now, and then dropping it into the box's inventory. So I might need to change this panel. Now, as I talk through it, I might need to change the panel manager. And this brings up another question, actually. These two options, do these need to be on the panel manager, or should they be on the panel itself? Because as I was talking, I was thinking about a use case. Like, imagine Indiana Jones, and he has a bag of sand, and he wants to put the bag of sand in a specific place on the pedestal. And let's say that it's sort of like a puzzle in your game. So now it's not just an inventory, but you can create a puzzle where a specific object might need to be put in a specific place. And if that's the case, then maybe your puzzle inventory, pedestal, whatever it might be called, maybe you don't want these to show up for that inventory, but you do want these to show up for the others. So before we do anything else, let's fix that. We need to move these two to the panel rather than the panel manager. That should be easy enough, I would think. I would hope. We'll find out in just a second. Options. So we'll copy this, go to panel, wherever it is. There it is. Button colors required, and we're going to put options above required. Hey, look, there's 2 required. Well, that's not cool. Let's see. How about we move this equipment panel. Okay, we might need to move that as part of this updated thing. So I'm going to copy all of that, put that up there. Delete all this now. Okay. I'm not sure what to do with all this stuff. I think some of these can be private, but we'll do that during a cleanup phase. So we've moved those over. Now the easiest way I know of figuring out where I need to adjust things here is just delete this and see where the errors are. All right. Let's see where the errors are. So now instead of panel manager, we should say panel. And that should solve it. I think, although we ought to double check that we know which panel we are. Actually, we do, because the grid buttons, when they're created, are told what panel they're a part of. So a grid button can only be a part of one panel. Let's make sure we didn't mess everything up. And let's see. Doesn't look like we messed anything up so far. Oh, no, it can't because it's down there. Can't fit in that spot. Okay. Yep, everything seems to be working peachy keen. All right, perfect. Okay, so we didn't mess anything up. Always a good thing. All right, so we removed that from the panel manager. Now let's think about this. Is there ever a chance that we'd have more than 2 at the same time? We know there's always the chance for the player inventory, and there's always a chance for another one on top of that, like this treasure box. But essentially, what we're really doing is saying, hey, panel manager, if you load the inventory panel, then close off, or hide rather, what another panel that's already there. Don't destroy it, don't remove it, because when we close the inventory panel, we want that one to show again. But if we have a treasure box and that's open, there's no way to open another treasure box without closing that one first, coming back to the world, and then selecting or clicking on a second treasure box. Right? Right. So really, panel manager probably doesn't need this list of panels here. It really needs to know... what does it need to know? It needs to know public panel player inventory, or was lowercase p, player inventory panel, and public panel, other panel. Other panel, it doesn't really matter. So I'll specify these. Let's do this now. There's a tooltip. Unity 3D editor tooltip. I can't remember off the top of my head what the tooltip code is. Tooltip attribute. But I want to add a tooltip because I want to specify. There we go. Tooltip. That's easy enough. I try my best, and I think this is a good practice. I try to not copy paste when I want to remember something. So tooltip, and then we're going to say this is the player inventory panel, which we expect to always be available to the user. Okay, and then for this one, tooltip. Well, yeah, we're not going to actually, we're going to hide this one in the inspector. Oops. Because this one will be assigned automatically by objects, not by the player. But this one, the user, you, the dev who makes the game, will have to specify this. And in fact, we're going to put a debug log here. We're going to say check required. And then with the writer, we'll just click this button. And we will say if there's no player inventory panel, then we'll say debug.log color equals yellow. And I'm going to do yellow for a specific reason. Did you forget to add the player inventory panel? And why we're doing color yellow, not red, because I can imagine that you might create a game where there is no player inventory panel. Or you're doing player inventory differently, but you still want to use this this system for other types like boxes and stuff, so that the player inventory is like Skyrim style or Final Fantasy style or whatever it might be, but the world inventory is this style. And if that's the case, then you might not need a player inventory panel. And so this is yellow. It's a warning. I'm not going to do the debug log warning, but I'm going to keep it here just to say, hey, this is going to be my own. I'm going to replace these, of course, so that they can be easily toggled on and off. Just a heads up, if you didn't assign it, you might want to assign it if that's your project. Otherwise, other panel. Okay, and then I'm going to do another one. Hide an inspector panel dot, and we're going to say active panel. And this is going to be the okay. We don't need any of this now. So this is going to be our active panel. Just thinking it through. Yeah. Can we put multiple of these? Header. But it's not required, so I'm not going to put a header for required. I don't want to confuse folks. Optional. Okay. Yeah, I think that's good. So that means that these methods can be removed. So what we really need is, okay, what methods are we going to need? Hey, Jason, how are you? Having a good night, I hope. Let's see, what methods are we going to need for this? We're going to need activate other panel or populate other panel. How about set? So public void set other panel, and we're going to need a panel to set. We'll say new panel, and this is just going to say other panel equals new panel, and we'll do an optional one. Set active boolean bool set active equals true. If set active, then we'll say set active panel to, how about this? We'll change this. Activate other panel. And create that. On activate other panel, we're going to activate it. So two things we're going to do. First, we're going to say other panel dot set active. Oh, wait a minute. The panel system. Yeah, we're making the panel system. So you missed the cool demos where I was showing it actually working more than the last. You actually saw a demo on Wednesday, but there's more to it now. It's a little bit better, but now we have to switch between the panels because it's possible that the player inventory is there always the time, but there might be a box that you open up, and then you want to pick up something from the box, put in your own inventory, and switch between the two. And so that's what we're doing here is just switching between two. We were talking about how there's probably no reason to ever have more than two that we think of, at least not for the scope of this module. And so we just have one or the other, or none. So let's see. What I'm doing here is we want to set the active panel, but the panel isn't a game object, so I can't just say activate it. But I can say on panel, I think there's an activation thing that I already make use of on enable. Yeah, so I think it's just going to be saying the game object activated and disabling the other one. So, whoops. I have a bug here, an error here. Okay, we'll deal with that later. Panel manager. So what I want to say is, okay, activate the other panel. So other panel.gameObject.set active true. And if it's already active, then it won't trigger the on enable, I believe. And so we're good there. And then we're going to say if player inventory panel.gameObject.active self, then do it this way since Jason's watching. Return. So if the other one's not active, actually, even better. Maybe it's even better. Deactivate player panel. And I can actually turn that into a toggle probably. And we're going to say player inventory panel dot set active false. So I'm going to actually dot game object. So I'm actually going to turn these into a toggle. Rather than saying activate, I'm just saying a toggle other panel. And actually, it's not a true toggle. Okay, we'll say set active other panel and set active player panel. And we'll just do a boolean set to true and set to status. There we go. And we'll do the same down here. And so what we're really doing then is we're going to call set active other panel to true. All right, set other panel. If we're saying it to active, set to true. I don't know if that's specifically easier for this case, but good practice, probably. Inverting those. And then set the other panel to true. And then if we're saying it to true, we don't even need that. Well, it's fine enough to just pass it through to be explicit, I suppose. And then other panel set to true, and then set the player panel to false. And that will set the active player panel, set active player panel false. Okay. And then that means we can do the flip side as well. If we're saying the active player panel, Okay, so we only want to set this to false if we're saying this to true. So if not status, so if status is false, then return. Otherwise, we're going to set toggle this one to turn off. If we're turning this on, then this needs to turn off. But if we're turning this off, we don't need to turn this on because otherwise we get a loop, because we're going to do the same thing down here. Hey, Fredo 888888888. How are you? All right, we're going to do the opposite here. So for the player inventory, we're going to set it to the status, true or false, turn it on or off. And if we are turning it off, then we do nothing. If we're turning it on, then we're going to turn off this other one. And if we turn this off, then we're only turning it off. So we only toggle these if we turn it on true. We got no loop there, right? I don't think we have a loop there. Now, could these be combined into one? Could they be combined into one? Should they be combined into one? Maybe. Now I'm thinking. They could be combined into one, I suppose. It's Saturday, so you can take a nap maybe. Unless you work on Saturdays. Then you can't take a nap. Unless your job is to test mattresses, in which case you can probably take a nap. Maybe we could turn these into one. I mean, I suppose it's possible to set one to true just by passing it in. But at the same time, let's see what the other scripts do, and we can always circle back to these. So this is the one to set other panel. This will populate the other panel variable with the new panel passed into it, and optionally set the new panel to be active. This is good for when you are opening a box and you've just created a new panel and you want to show it. And then if you do show it and the player panel is already active, which it probably wouldn't be if you're opening a new box, but just in case, you'll turn that one off because you can only have one at a time. And then later in the game, you're going to turn the set active player panel for bool to true here. So this is going to be turn on or off the active player or the player inventory panel. If true, we'll turn off any other panel that may be active. And we'll do the same up here. So turn on or off the other panel. If true, we'll turn off the player panel if it is active. So now in our actual, let's fix this bug. Get active panel on screen. Get active panel is now panel manager active panel. Okay, so I need to set that down here. So if it's not, so if it's false, return. If it's true, then we can say active panel equals other panel. And down here, we're going to say active panel equals player inventory panel. Is that... So what we're really doing here is the on-screen item, which is that hovering item, doesn't care about what panels are active. It's just going to pass it into whatever it is the active panel. That's why we need to know what the active panel is here. But there's a chance, of course, that there is no active panel. Because if this is both false, so I'm going to not do that here. Actually, let's change how we do that. There's a better way of doing it. We're going to say get active panel. of this. We will just create this here. Or where's it? Where did it create? Did it create it? What happened? Where'd it go? Oh. That's weird. Why is it linking it to the panel? Get active. Maybe it's because it's not public. Odd. Okay, now that's right. I'm not sure. That's interesting that it was linking it to another scripts method of the same name. All right, so return null if there's nothing. But we're going to say first if player inventory panel dot game object dot active self, then return player inventory panel. If other panel dot game object dot active self, then return other panel, otherwise return null. Fair enough. Simple enough. Get active panel, so active panel is now that, and on screen items, get active panel is saying the active panel. And we're going to keep this here because there's always a chance that there is no panel manager for some reason. And so we're not gonna simplify that any more than it already is, I suppose. All right, so now let's just go back into Unity, wrong one, not the pretty one. We'll get to that later, maybe, if I don't get too tired and this works out perfectly. Let's see. Did I forget to add? I did forget to add that. Is it going to cause any issues? Let's find out. Nope. Oh, yep, it's causing issues. All right. So, yes, I forgot. So, let me remember. Player inventory panel. All right. Let's try it again. Perfect. Perfect. Working exactly as planned. All my plans are coming into place. Waha, evil laugh. All right, so that's good. Now we need to figure out how to open the box. Now I'm not adding to this any like clicking logic of how to click into the world or anything like that. That's out of the scope of this module. So I'm going to instead add a button right here. Demo objects, these are the ones you can just delete, and we'll just create a UI button. And we will call this treasure box button, and we'll make it bigger. We'll say 200 by 300. Nope, 200 by 100. That's much better. And we will make it over here, and we'll make it wider, maybe 300 by 150. Make a nice, nice big button, and we'll just slap it in here. No need to be fancy. We're all friends. We don't have to be fancy. Make this much bigger though. Button. Open treasure box. Smaller than that. Bigger than that. All right. Open treasure box. And what happens when we open the treasure box? Well, we need to open the treasure box. So I'm going to add a script to this button, and we'll add it in our demo scripts. Not scenes, demo scripts. We're going to create a C# script. We're going to say we'll just call this box, because really, what is it? What is it? It's a treasure box. It could be a wardrobe box. It could be a barrel. It could be a pedestal, like with the Indiana Jones example we were talking about earlier. It could be anything. We're just going to call it box. And we're going to put in the namespace infinity_pbr.inventory demo. You can, of course, make use of this and steal it, or not. Up to you. I don't care. And we need to pass in the using static infinity_pbr inventory panel manager, because we need the got clicked. So public got clicked and void, and call this when the button gets clicked, because in this demo this is just a button. So let's write that out here. In the demo, we are using a button to represent the box. In your game, likely the player will open this box in some other method, but feel free to take from this script and add to your own in the ways that make sense. Keep in mind, a box doesn't need to be a literal box, but could be any object or thing that has an inventory system attached to it, like the top of a bed or table, or a pedestal, or table, or a traditional box like a treasure, wardrobe drawer, or a, can't spell today, or any day, drawer, or a barrel. All right, just to make sure everyone knows that box doesn't mean it has to be a box. It's just a thing that has an inventory. You made me a present, Jason, in Discord. It's not even my birthday, you know that, right? Could not render this file preview. Is this the present? Debugs. This is the present. Oh, okay. I'm not going to look at it then. Drop into my InfinityBR scripts folder and don't even open it. Then you'll show me something cool. Okay. All right. Debugs.cs. And let me bring up the right. This is exciting. InfinityPBR scripts. Where's my InfinityPBR scripts? Oh. Well, we'll just create a new one. Temp scripts. I have a scripts folder for shared InfinityPBR scripts, so I'll have to bring that into this project. Finder. And bring that over. Oh, no, bring that over. Oh, come on. Bring that over. There you go. Did it. All right. Ready to be blown away. Can I look at it? I want to look at it. I really want to click on this and look at it. Okay. I already have a bunch written, so I'm just going to press play. And... okay, so not like that. You meant just writing a new one. Okay. I see. Okay, we'll do that here. Debug.log box button got clicked. New script. There might be a time delay between when I actually see things being typed and when the stream sends things that I'm saying. Debugs. Debugs. Bugs.log. Yes. Message and color. So, box button got clicked. Color green. I'm going to click this, and then I'm going to dig into that script because we will all see what that. All right. Nothing happened. Oh, I need to link it. That's my fault. This is all on me. Where's my treasure box? No, not that box. Treasure box button. On, click, drag over, button. Wait a minute. Oh, huh. I didn't add the script. That makes more sense. Okay. Box got clicked. Oops, wrong button. There's box button got clicked. Now, let's dig into this then. We got this class of debugs, static class of debugs. So, if a string in color, then, so this is the, what's the term for this? Literal? Is that the term when you put the $sign and then you can type in inside the curly brackets your variables rather than typing the plus, etc.? Like, that's kind of essentially saying message would be color equals color plus da-da-da. So you just do this instead. String interpolation, not literals. This is string interpolation. Essentially, adding this in front of your string means that you can use curly brackets to add your variables inside those, and it's a little bit easier than writing out all this. Probably easier to read for a lot of folks too. And then this is a color symbol, so we're going to say to HTML string RBGA color utility. Oh, this is not something I was aware of. Is this? I've used color utility for another thing, and I was using I was doing it for another thing, the color utility, but I didn't see this one. To HTML string RGBA. So you pass in. I see. Wait. So the color. You're getting the HTML out of the hexadecimal, out of the color. Interesting. What's the difference here? What is this mono behavior? This is the this. Let me try that. So the suggestion was to this log. Some message, okay, and then what if I do? I'm looking at the debugs here. Debug. I like saying debugs instead of debugs. Is that okay with everybody? It's more fun for me. What is this mono behavior? Let's find out. Can I do that? No, because this is not a mono behavior. Yes, it is. The function is add onto the object you are in. So Jason's saying that in this instance, this is the box. Oh, so this is like in reference to, this is always the box if I'm adding it from the box. Oh, it would select the object in the hierarchy. So I need to pass this in. Okay, so what you're saying, let's do that again. And actually, let's do both methods here. Not debugs. And let's just see, for everybody's sake. Let me finish this one and then I'll... if I click this... I see. So the difference is, in this one, I click it and it opens the treasure or selects the treasure box. And this one it doesn't. So technically, if I were to say debugs.log and then this .parent, whoops, .transform.parent.game object, message and pink or magenta, I guess. Can I do that? No, can't do that. All right. Jason was saying another example, add a dependency to the script you were working on. Dependency to the script, like a text or something. Oh, add the log to the, wait, add the log to the end. What? Sorry, I'm. Oh, so it would be like this. Whoops. Huh. Oh yes, only mono behaviors. That's right. I mentioned that earlier. But we could say is a transform is not a mono behavior, I guess, is it? No. But the point is that I could say panel. So we could say panel manager dot log. There we go. That's an example there. So we want to select the panel manager. It's all good. This is pretty neat. I know you had mentioned this a week ago or a couple weeks ago, and I haven't had a chance to play around with this concept. But all right, if we open the treasure box, so now this one does nothing. It just opens up this. This one selects the treasure box. This one should select the manager, which is right here. And it did. Magic. So thank you, Jason, for this. This was a nice gift. So earlier I mentioned that I will be updating all the debugs at some point to toggle them on and off. And so what I think I'll do is add a toggle here, or a public bool, I guess, yeah, public bool, show debugs equals true. So I can, static. So I can turn that on and off, and then I'll later, this is going to be to do, update this so that show debugs controls whether or not we actually do any debugs. That way, you can keep these turned on, which is great because they're helpful when setting things up. But you can, with one button or one bit of code, turn them off as well. Yes, so that's I've been playing with it. So Jason says the last example is his personal favorite. Add something you might forget to drag into the inspector. Maybe that's why you thought of this, because I was doing the thing where I've been doing this check required, and I've been putting out warnings or sometimes red for errors to say, hey, did you forget to put something in the inspector? Because it might cause a problem. In some cases, it will absolutely cause a problem. In this case, it would only cause a problem if you're using the player inventory panel. Cool. Thank you, Jason. That was a very nice, helpful example, and I will make use of that for sure. For anyone who doesn't know Jason's story, for the 6 other people watching the stream, Jason, hello to everybody. What's this? Now write player inventory panel require this. Oh, wait a minute. We're going to the next level here. Um, player inventory panel require this. Are you saying? Hold on, let me move the wrong ones here. What are you saying? Player inventory. Whoop, right there on line 42. Oh no, right here, 42. Okay. Player inventory panel dot require. Whoops. Just didn't want to cancel. I just want to close that. What does this require? Debugs require. Wait a minute. I didn't even see this one. So this is like it's like one of those Russian dolls with a gift within a gift within a gift. Yeah, Jason, you should make a video and put it on your Ko-fi page. That would be a cool idea. Coffee page. I say Ko-fi because it's K-O, and I just want to say Ko-fi, but it's coffee page, K-O-F-I. Is that right? Let's see. Whoops. Wrong button. Close that. Ko-fi. Coffee. Jason's story. Is that? It's not that. Let's see. Nope. Ah, Ko-fi.com, Jason's story. Yes. So, yeah, this is Jason's page. Everybody go to this URL. And Jason, now you've got some stuff to put on your page, because I agree this would make a really cool little tutorial, just a quick little tip thing. So now let's go back to this. What we were doing here is panel manager require this. And so let me remove it from the panel manager. So just pretend we haven't added. The Mac has this silly thing where if you click too fast or too slow, it doesn't actually pop up. It pops up and closes. All right. Panel required by inventory required script. So what it's doing here. So this and the item where T is a component that needs to be added. If T equals null, then the log warning. This is the make sure I remember what it's called. This is the string interpolation. So string interpolation, color yellow, type of T name inside the curly brackets. It's going to be panel, that type, is required by the item. And we are passing in this item, which is the panel manager, and type of T name. So we're saying this item requires, wait. Oh, player inventory panel. I get it. Okay, so this item requires this component. I was reading it backwards and confusing myself. So the reason I do put this in Awake, but I've been putting it at the end of Awake. Just because, or I think some of them I've been putting in Update, because in some cases they require some of these to be set. They don't have to be done at Awake, so I've been putting some of them in Update instead of Awake, and basically returning if the required aren't all there. So that's why I put it there. But in this case, I think in Awake is perfectly fine. Okay, that's awesome. And then when you click that, whoops, when you click that, it selects the right thing. So you can be like, oh yeah, I forgot, oops, my bad, I'll populate it now. Inventory panel right there. All right, that's cool. All right. Oh, you don't need the if check. That's right, because if we, so Jason's pointing out that on debugs here, this only happens if there's something being passed, and so we don't need the if check at all. We just say require that, and if there is nothing, if it's only, yeah, if t is not null, if the thing we're passing is not null, if it's not populated, then it won't do any message. So yeah, here's a question for you, Jason. I don't know this answer. I'm assuming that doing this, knowing that it's null, like if we know this is going to be null 99.9999% of the time, and we're going to, let's say we're checking this on update, is there any issue with calling something that we know is going to be null most of the time? I'm assuming that takes so little resources that it's not an issue, but it's actually something I've always wondered because I know very little about the actual inner workings of the computer. This is an interesting question. If we know this is going to be null most of the time, I guess if we're checking if it's null, then that's doing the exact same thing, so it probably doesn't matter. Oh, you're saying null checks are costly. So you want to do a null check, and if it's not there, set a bool true or false, and then an update check the bool. Because null checks actually cast types and check if the object is alive to Unity as well as null. And that, I'm assuming, then is more resource than just checking if a single boolean is. So destroyed object may or may not be null yet, etc. Okay. So if we're going to be doing this often, I would set it to a bool and then check the bool rather, and then periodically check whether or not the object is there rather than doing it every frame. Check it every second or every time we need it to be checked, essentially, and cache it if possible. Okay, good to know. There we go. Question answered. Good to know, because I'm pretty sure I make that mistake all the time, actually. Actually, I know I make that mistake from time to time. So, all right, so what do we do when we open a treasure box? When we open a treasure box, we want to show the panel. And we don't have a panel here, so we need to make this into a prefab. So let's do this without messing it up. Our panel area looks like this. Now, the box panel isn't going to look like this, so I've actually copied that over here. So we can make this into a prefab. We need the inventory area. That's going to be this area right here in this case. We don't need this. We don't need the equipped items. We don't need the equipped item list, so we'll delete all of those. And we need the inventory objects. Temporarily, these are just there for testing and building purposes. It's a whole nother video I'll have to do on how to set up the objects, because there is some setup required. It's not that daunting, but it takes just some time. So we'll delete those. We don't need those there. So the inventory panel, we don't need these either. Those will be populated automatically. The basic inventory panel has just the inventory area, inventory objects, which are actual game objects that get put on here. And essentially that's it, but we need to set up these required things. You set that up. So we got the inventory camera set up, inventory area set up, where grid buttons are down there, prefab. The rect transform. Z position is -80, that's fine. We'll keep our button colors the way they are. Equipment panel. Yes, so that is what we had made a note. I saw a note earlier to move this. We don't want the equipment panel there. Where are we moving it to? Where are we using it? So we are checking for it. Populate equipment. So we need to move this to a demo portion of this because which is going to be control, really. This is our control system controller for the demo. So we're going to need to move all of these over there before we can move on. We can't have them in that. So string clear button. So I think these two for sure are going to have to be moved over to control, awake methods, update methods, general methods. Put them down here. Okay, and we need then equipment panel. And I'm going to just delete these and cause errors on purpose. Okay. Equipment panel is moving over here, and this is going to be a required object. Okay. And comment that out, make some more errors for myself. So we're populating the equipment on awake. We're not going to do that here, but we will do it somewhere. Where are we going to do it? We're going to do it when we load the inventory. So what happens? Let's see. Where? Hold on. Another bug. Gotta fix this bug. We don't need that. Okay. Let's see what happens when we load the inventory. Let me close this one for now. All right. Load the player inventory. So this is essentially where we load the player inventory. 169. Select player. And open inventory. So that's what we need to do here. We need to add it here. Opening inventory, and then right afterwards, populate equipment. There we go. And then we're going to populate the equipment. All right. And I feel like we're going to have more bugs, but let's just see what happens. Let's see. Oops. Okay. Press play. Add some stuff to the inventory. Load it up. So this is what we're dealing with here. Did it work? Okay, so far it worked. Oh, okay, it worked. Hey, we didn't have bugs. Why? I don't know why we didn't have bugs. I'm just so used now to having bugs that when I don't have bugs, I assume that's a bug. Like it must be a bug because I didn't have a bug. You know what I mean? If you're following me. I'm sure some of you are following me. Yeah, okay, so that worked. That was far easier than I expected it to be. I'm happy about that. Very happy about that, actually. And in to do, let's just delete those things. All right. So where were what was the point of all that? The point of all that was moving those into control because populating the equipment only matters on the player equipment panel. It doesn't matter on the generic box panels, etc. All right. So now, that's right. We were making a prefab. So now this is going to be a box. We're going to just call this box inventory panel. And what's neat here is that you can set this up to look like however you want. In this case, I'm actually going to change it because I want. Hey, there's Jason again. We're just going to find some quick little wood thing. So we'll go to wood texture. And we'll just find anything. This one looks good. I like that. So I'm just going to use this for now. I'll replace it in the actual build with something that I own or can export. There we go. I'll take this one. Because I do not condone the use of stealing stuff. However, I do condone the quick use of resources that are not used in a commercial way, etc., etc., etc. And I'm going to put this into folder temp textures, because I'd like to have the difference now, but I don't want to take the time out of the stream to make a bespoke thing. So I'm going to put it in here for temporary textures. And then make this into a sprite. All right, and apply it. And then we will throw that in here as the background. Nope, not that background. The inventory area background. All right, so this is going to be our box background. It's pixelated, it's JPEG. This is why you never use JPEGs in games, because of all that, so don't use JPEG. But we'll do that for now. All right, so this is our box background, and it doesn't need to be to the side anymore, because for this box, you know, it's can be in the middle. So let's just center that. Center it. Is there going to be it's not going to be some snapping going on. That's too bad. Is there a way to center it differently? No. Can I do it like this? No. Or maybe that, position 0, 0. No. Undo all that. All right, I'll just do it what looks right. That looks right. We'll do that. Fair enough. So this is our box inventory area. Inventory items will be here. We'll see if this works. Hold Shift and Alt and click that red box, this red box. Okay, let's say Shift and Alt, click this. Oh, anchor presets. Oh, fancy. Aha. I see. Shift will also set the pivot. I'll set the position. All right, that should work. Thank you, Jason. One more thing learned, everybody. Holding Shift and Alt. So I guess you can always click this, and I just never read this. I bet most of you never read this too. Or maybe it was just me. All right, that's cool. I don't know if this, I think objects doesn't matter where it is on the screen, but it might. We'll see. We'll find out. I think that's all we need, because we've got everything else set up in the as a prefab here. We're probably going to need a reference to some of these things in the manager, because we shouldn't trust that these will always be populated in the prefab. So I think the manager would be more appropriate to assign those things. It knows its own inventory area. It knows the grid button. It knows its own objects. It's got that. But this, I guess technically that could be different. So I'm going to assign that camera when we instantiate this. So let's make this a prefab. Okay. And we'll just turn it off. So we need a few things in the manager now. We need the public game object box inventory prefab, and we need the public camera UI camera, and we need public I guess game object will be fine for now, or transform really. Transform panel parent. This is going to be where the panel goes, where we're going to put the panel. In this case, it's going to be a child of this canvas. So if we go to our manager here, we need the UI camera, box prefab that we just created, and the parent, which is here, and check our required bits. We'll add to those. Check required. What else do we need? We need a box inventory prefab. So player so this has to be read left or right to left, really. This requires that. So we're going to say, I'm going to change this to required by, because my brain keeps misreading this, saying that this requires that. And so now player inventory is required by this. So now if I want to say that box inventory, inventory prefab required by this. Uh-oh. Oh, because it's a game object. Okay. But I bet I could make another version of this. Can I do that? Can I just do that? No, I can't. What if I just do like bool test equals true? Component to Unity object. Unity engine.object. Okay. Okay. That should work, yeah. We'll test it because let's see if it works. Let me just go back here real quick to the panel manager. We will require the prefab. We will say UI camera is required by this. Yeah, the way thinking about it, it's somewhat subjective. Everyone's going to read things slightly differently. For me, I was definitely getting confused with just required. Maybe I'm way too literal with my left to right thinking, way too Western, but that's that one got me 3 times, I think, and so I was like, okay, I need to change that. And then panel parent is required by this. And let's say that we don't have this prefab set. So we should see an error message. Game object required by that. And so instead of game object, if I'm on panel manager, I'm passing in, that's fine. Fair enough. I think it's straight enough that it doesn't need to say what game object. Any transforms or anything like that. Okay, cool. That works for me. I'm happy with it. We did something. That's always fun. Box inventory prefab. Where was that? All right, here. Okay. Now, next step is to actually load the box itself. So that's going to be bringing it into the here, making it a parent, and activating it. We could do that. So the box says this got clicked. So we're going to say, hey, panel manager, set other panel to no. So scratch some things off the list. We actually need to put the prefab here. Because every box might have a different size prefab. Some might be small, some might be large. And so really, box inventory prefab is going to be something to that we need here. And so we need to add this over there. So we're not going to do the required by because this is just going to be a prefab itself. Or a button rather for the demo. Oh, I guess we could do the required by. Yeah, so we'll do private void awake. So box inventory prefab required by this. That is a lot easier, I have to say, Jason. That's a lot easier than what I was doing. I mean, it's such a small little thing, but it adds up over time, you know. A live show tomorrow on Jason Wyman's channel. Unity3D.college. I think so. I hope so. I like those. Those are fun. It's 9 a.m. Pacific usually, so my guess is I think there is one. I haven't heard otherwise, so I would go with yes. I'm waking up for it. That's for sure. Okay, so this is required. So we're gonna tell other panel. Well, let's not do anything yet. Let's adjust this because we don't need that here now. Just do one thing at a time. Instead, we're going to put that on the box button. In your game, it might be attached to this object or something on whatever method is used to say open a box. Where's our box button? Box button, box button. No, it's here somewhere. Box button. There it is. Couldn't see it for some reason. All right, and my box button, I need to add that prefab. All right. And so now when we click it, we're going to tell the manager to set the other panel, and we're going to pass in the new panel. See, I guess I knew this before. I just forgot it partway through. So panel manager dot set other panel, and we're going to pass in a new panel, which we don't have yet. And yes, we want it to set active. But first, we're going to create that new panel. And to do that, we're going to say panel manager dot instantiate panel and box inventory prefab. Okay, and what we're actually going to do is pass in that. So we're going to say set panel to whatever panel we instantiate here. And we're going to create that method over in panel manager. And it's going to return what we instantiate. And we're going to have to double check that if this returns null for whatever reason, if no new panel, then return. Because if it doesn't return anything, then we can't do anything. So we are calling set other panel. Yeah. Okay. So instantiate panel, we're going to do panel new panel equals instantiate. I'm going to rename this create panel so we don't get that autofill thing messing us up in the future. So create panel, instantiate box inventory prefab, and I'm going to change that to inventory prefab, and I'm going to spell it right. And then we're going to put it on the parent, which we called, what we call panel parent. Fair enough. Panel parent. Dot get component panel. All right, that should be good, and return new panel. Now, where could this go wrong? It could go wrong if panel is not attached there. So if that's the case, then we need to do game object new panel and move this to a separate area. So if new panel dot get component, is there a has component? What's the best way? I always do this. If it doesn't have the component, then return null. If it does, then we're going to return new panel dot get component panel. But it seems like I'm calling this twice, and I shouldn't call it twice or something. I feel like this is the same. Is there a way to do has component that's faster than this doesn't get component? I don't know, maybe not. What's this? Ryder, our sage on the shoulder, says convert to return statement. All right, let me do what I did earlier, because we have this bit of code. And Ryder is telling us that there's a cooler way of doing it. And if we want to be cool, like the cool kids, we should make this a return statement. Try get component. Is try get component a much faster way than doing this sort of thing? So if I'm reading this correctly, this is what I was doing originally. Just saying, hey, if there's no panel, return null. But otherwise, return the panel. Right away is cooler, but it's still doing redundant work. So the above is more performant. Okay, so let me first read what this is so I can get my head around this, and then we'll go to the more let me calm myself so I can speak. Performant way. All right. Now that we've gotten the words out, return if we can't get the new panel, or if it doesn't have the component, null, otherwise panel. All right, that's fair enough. We've been doing that before. I just didn't think that I could do it like that, I guess. I've been using this, and I keep forgetting what this is called. Ternary operator or something like that, maybe? Something like that. But I've been using that for many things. Often in other areas like this, I'll use them up here or whatnot. But I haven't yet used it like this. So this makes a lot of sense, though. Or I don't think I've used it like that. All right, but we don't want to do that. It's less performant, and we want to be performant. So we're going to say try get component. So we're going to first change this to new object, and then we're going to say panel new panel null. We don't even have to say null. We can just say new panel, I think. And then we're going to say ternary. This is a ternary operator. That's what this is. Ternary operator. I'm trying to learn all the cool terms because I don't know them all. And I realize when I'm making videos or something, I come to a point where I talk about it, I'm like, shoot, I don't know what it's called. That's not cool. Ternary operator. And now I keep adding an extra syllable to that as well. Ternary operator. Okay. Ternary operator. So we're going to do if new object dot try get component panel of type panel. So try get component of type panel out new panel. And return new panel. Redundant. So we don't need... Okay, so I'm going to guess that it's saying this is redundant. We can specify it. But it's redundant because since new panel is panel, it has to be that type. Otherwise, it would return false as well. Why is this mistaken empty statement? Can we just do this? Because if we know new panel is null, then we're going to try set it. And if so, then we get it. Otherwise, it's going to be null. Can we then say, no, that's too much. No, we have to set it first because it has to be null before we can try to set it. All right. Paste it in Discord. Let's check out Discord. If new object, try get panel out, return panel, otherwise return null. I see. So we don't need to set this because what Jason is saying here, that instead of setting a panel to null and then trying to assign it, just return it. So this is creating a new variable. Ooh, I can make a ternary, even ternary, I can't speak, I can't say the word. You can even ternary that. And now we're using ternary as a verb, which does make me sound cooler than those kids who don't use ternary as a verb. So we can say then, that's what we're going to do, return, I should do it up here so I can see, return, and now it's down there, come on, writer, new object dot try get component of type panel out of our new variable panel. If that, then return panel. Nope, just return panel. Otherwise, null. Oh, that is cooler. That is so much cooler. Because it's now one line. And now that we all know that this is a ternary operator, bam, indeed, it's just going to return, if there's a panel, return the panel. Otherwise, return null. That is cool. All right. Now, why were we doing this? We got clicked. Panel manager, set other panel, create panel. So we're going to say panel manager, set other panel to this new one we just created. And this one might be null. And if it's null, we're going to just return. So do nothing if it's null, essentially. That's what it comes down to. Otherwise, the other panel is this new panel that we just created. Set active, yes, we're going to set active, so we're going to set active other panel. And as I was looking at that, I realized we also need a way to destroy the panels that we close, because other panels are not forever. They're only here when they're open. When they're closed, they are closed for good. And then when they reopen, they'll repopulate. Because that's what we have to do here. After got clicked, I will write the note here. Populate the items. Because what's good is the box if there's nothing in it? No good. That's what's good of the box. All right. So our next step then is to check to see if this is working, I suppose. And then we're going to need to add a close button to the UI. So let's just see what happens. See if it magically works. Open the treasure box. We have some errors. That's fine. We'll figure these out. Why am I getting an error? Let me pause it. I think we're getting tons of errors, so I'm going to pause it right there. Where were we? Panel spots is filled. Spots might not be there. Oh, and that's interesting. So spots. That's right, because every inventory, I mean, the panel is just these grids, but it doesn't know what's in there, and for that we need the spots, which on the player is part of the player data, but for these it's going to be part of the box data. Okay, let's take a tangent. Yes, I want to see something cool about the to-do items I'm adding to the code. And we're referring to this right here, my little note that I need to populate the item. I also need to add spots. Prefix the... Oh, yeah, I do that already. I'm somewhat cool, Jason. I'm somewhat cool. Can't type. I can't spell, I mean. But I'm cool. somewhat cool. Yes, I've done that. But let's see. Is there something though that you know that I don't know? I know this turns it blue, which is kind of helpful. Aha! I knew there was gonna be more. I just knew it. Open the tab at the top. What tab at the top? Which tab? There's so many tabs at the top. View tool, Windows to do. View. You know, I've never actually looked up here. This is on me. I know it's all on me. Tool, Windows to do, and it gives me all the to dos. Aha. This is probably to do because I said bug. that's my guess. That's helpful. So for those of you who don't use Writer yet, if you're anything like me, you don't like to spend extra money on subscriptions that you don't need. HBO Max, for instance, right now, or Disney Plus, depending. I go back and forth between the two. But you can only, you only want so many subscriptions. But Writer costs money. I think it's $12 a month for me right now because I think it goes down, which is an interesting way to do this. Oh, and Visual Studio does this too? Well, then never mind. Never mind. The spiel was about how I like Writer. Visual Studio does it too. So never mind. But I still like Writer. I've never actually learned Visual Studio, so maybe I don't need it. But I saw this one guy on YouTube once. His name was Jason Wyman, and he said Writer's really cool. And I was like, I want to be cool. So I downloaded Writer, got the 30-day free trial, and it was awesome. And in hindsight, let me tell you just a story. When I first started learning Unity in 2012, I saw Indie Game the movie. Good movie, not bad. The second one was not good. So Indie Game the movie. The sequels are never as good as the original, I suppose, except for Star Wars. And I wanted to make a game because I said I could do that. If those guys can do it, I can do that. Why not? I'm cool. And then I got Unity, and I got a book from Barnes & Noble, and I started sitting down, going through the book page by page. And yeah, there's a second one. There's an Indie Game movie too, or something. I'm not sure what, but it's not as good. You should watch it, but it's not as good as the first. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm ruining it for you. So make your own judgment. But yeah, there's a second one. And I said to myself, I can do this. So I was reading the book, and there was a bug in the book. But here's the deal. I put it down, and then months later, I came back to Indie Game the movie. I saw it again, and I was like, "Come on, Andrew, you can do this." And so I did it, and this time I found tutorials from the Walker Boys Studios. I think they're still on there, some of the Walker Boys. They had these cool Unity tutorials. This was 2012, early 2013. And at the time, Unity was C# and, Unity script or JavaScript. I didn't know much coding at all, but I did know some Java type stuff from various web projects I had kind of hacked out and stuff. And that was a little bit more approachable. And at the time, people on the Unity forums, and I think that's the first asterisk and like, hey, wait, red flag. People on the Unity forum said, oh no, either one's fine, whatever one works best for you. Because the truth is, to some degree, whatever thing allows you to make the game, whether you're using Playmaker, Bolt, or coding it yourself, if whatever method allows you to make a game, if you can make a game with it, great, right? And so people were like, yeah, there's really no difference. I mean, there's syntax differences. I guess there was a couple things that C# could do that JavaScript couldn't do or Unity script couldn't do, but it wasn't that big of a deal. What nobody told me at that time, because I had nothing about nothing. I forget what tool was being used to code. It came with Unity, but whatever tool was being used, things like autofill or auto-populate the classes and stuff, just doing all of this, none of this was available in Unity script. And that's the biggest red flag. Whenever somebody says, well, people on the Unity forum say, red flag, it might be wrong. Can I say it probably is wrong? It might be wrong. Monodevelop, yeah. That's what it was. And it was free, so I was like, okay. I made my whole game the Barbarian in Unity script. Part of the reason why I could never update it is that when Unity script went away, I had to learn C sharp, or when Unity 5 came out, something like that. There were 20,000 bugs in the console just by loading up the project. I didn't know what I was doing with C sharp. I was still getting confused by Void because my brain is very literal when it comes to things, and with the Unity script you didn't need this Void, it was just assumed. That confused the heck out of me. Of course, in the middle of my making my game the Barbarian, I was like, why is it so slow? And it's because I had everything in the update loop, as a new Unity developer does. That's part of the path to success, is starting out by making everything in the update loop. And then I learned, hey, what's a method? What's a function? And so I was new. Anyways, the point is, what is the point? What was the point of all this? Don't trust the Unity forums? I don't know what the point of that story was, but I hope you enjoyed it. All right, so populate the items. There we go. Populate the items. What was I doing before that? Oh yeah, we had a bug here. What was the bug? The bug is that we had no spots. So we need to add spots onto the box inventory panel. Spots. So, oh, we do have spots. Wait a minute. What happens when we load the treasure box? So we're not loading the spots is what we need to do. We need to populate spots. So let's populate the spots. We're going to steal some code from player maybe. Spots. New spots, spots, setup. There we go. Spots setup. Oh, we can do that from this as well. So, set other panel and panel manager dot other panel. So I guess what we need to do is say if there's no other panel, if there's no active panel, let's see. On our panel manager, we're saying the spots, or we're saying the other panel. To other panel. Is that private? I think it's private. We need to make it public. Or should we set it up from the panel manager? We can do it from the panel manager, I think. So what I'm thinking out loud here is public void set spots and panel this panel, and this panel dot spots dot set up, and we'll say this setup spots. And so we can say on box panel manager dot setup spots. No, that doesn't work. Boo. Language boo. I never knew boo. This could be a good time for me to learn about getting and setting. I think there's a reason why I don't want people to set the other panel, but there is a reason I want people to get the other panel. Get. Is that the proper way of using it? Private panel get set. All right, I'm gonna do some research. Oops. Private. Oh, no, what am I doing here? Get set. Unit 3, get set. What is get set? I know Jason can tell us, but I'm gonna do some Googling. Get set, get set, get set, get set. Ah, so I want to be able to set it, and I want to be able to get it, and if I set it, get, and what is the point? The point is that I guess I don't need to do this at all. The point is that I probably don't need to do this at all. Let me see. Don't want to overcomplicate myself. If panel dot panel okay, then return. Okay, so if there's no other panel, then return. So if for some reason none of this worked, then we're done, and don't do anything. But if it did work, then we need to set the spots. So panel manager dot other panel dot spots dot setup, and we will do that here, not on panel manager. So I can delete that, I believe. So we set up the spots, and then we're going to populate the items, but that's still a to-do. Press play. All right, add to inventory, add to inventory. Oh no, we're not doing that. Open our treasure box. These are required. And that's because I didn't pass them in. Good to note. So let me pass those in. So panel manager on the part where instantiate, create panel. Oh, interesting. So here, okay, so we'll set that here. So panel manager dot other panel dot panel dot no. So I guess we could say panel manager set up other panel then, I guess. We'll do this there. I guess we will do it over there because there's more we need to do over there. So if there is no other panel, then we'll return. There should be though. So other panel, spots set up, and then other panel dot UI camera equals UI camera, because we need to do that as well. So I guess it does make sense to do it over there. Panel manager set up other panel. All right. Now we should see. I think the displaying of the items is already there. Okay, but did it end up working though? Did we end up getting it in there? We did end up getting the UI camera in there. And obviously, we're showing it. Well, we're not. That's not obvious, but so we did get it in there. So this can be ignored. So I'm just gonna make that. I'm gonna change these all to the cool debugs later, but we can ignore that. We're gonna turn it yellow because it's not actually required at that point. I suppose it could be happen later. Okay, and so displaying objects, that's part of the panel. That's already built into the panel on enable. It's going to load items equals true, and if loading items, if we're not loading items, it returns on update. Otherwise, we're going to display objects, and displaying objects is, let's see, for each item in inventory items. Okay, so the panel itself is inventory items. So the box is going to have to say, hey, what items can we put in there? Right? So in my head, I'm realizing there's a lot I need to do for this one. That's what I'd like to do for this one, but there's some basic steps too that I can do for this one. Okay. Okay, so I actually need to add the items. Interesting. Interesting. So what I'm thinking is, so we need to add the actual list of items. The panel itself, if we go back over here, this panel has an inventory list, and that's going to be, hey, what's in this box? Right now, there's nothing in this box. So I need to pass from, whatever manager holds the box, like, contents data about what to instantiate in most games, probably what to randomly put in there, or in some cases explicitly if there's a quest item or a certain item that needs to be in there. So what's in the box outside of this box inventory? And for this demo, we're going to do on the box button. So yeah. Okay. I just got a trophy from Restream saying, congratulations, you've received 100 messages today with Restream chat. Well, that's cool. I got an award. I'm an award-winning person. Took 2.5 hours to get there. How exciting. All right, so what we need is a list of items here. So public list items, or item items equal, I can't spell, items equals new list items. So I'm going to put the note here that, we are hard coding the item list for the demo. For now. I might change this later, actually. For your project, how you populate the list of items that is in the box is completely up to you, and there are many, many ways to do it. Yeah, Tech Dave 99, you chatted way too much. I think you had like at least 2. Oh, this is award-winning chat. This is award-winning chatter here. That's what this is. Okay, so we're just gonna make a list of items, and then on set other panel, I need to pass the list of items before we do the instantiation of the panel, because as soon as the panel is instantiated, it's going to want to get that list of items. So at that point, I need to do it. So I need to pass in this list of items at this point. At create panel, we need a list of items. And then so this cool code that we were very proud of before, I need to make it longer, I believe. So panel, new panel equals, or okay, let me see if I can wrap my head around it. So I don't want to return it yet. I'm going to return panel. And we're going to say, shoot. Because I need to attach this to the panel right here at this point. I can undo. Okay, let's work with this. So if I alt enter on lines like this, I think it doesn't quite work the same on a Mac as it does for a PC. Writer does. Not sure which I would select. But that's okay, because I do kind of want to type it out myself too, just to get it in my brain. So let me see if I can figure this one out. It would be, I mean, if I was going to do it in the most literal way, I would say panel, new panel equals new object dot try get component out panel, right, or something like that. Out new panel. Or just do that, and then there we go. So new panel equals null, and then try get new panel, and then I would say if new panel, or if not new panel, then return null. And then if there is a new panel, then I would say new panel dot inventory items equals items, and then return new panel. So that's what I would do traditionally. Oh, invert condition? No. Convert to if statement. I see. So we're saying so just like I can say return to ternary, if I select this alt enter convert to if statement. There we go. And the green dots. All right. But since I need to pass this in, I have to do it slightly differently, right? Or are we saying that I can do this if it has a panel, then panel dot inventory items equals items, and then return panel, otherwise return null. That does look more elegant than the way I was doing it. And then I don't need the else, just return null. Okay. I'm going to put a debug log here. And Jason, I'm still going to do the traditional method because I'm going to change them all at once at some other time. Whoops. Color yellow. Warning, there was no panel on the instantiated object. Just in case that comes up, we'll give a little warning because it should have a panel. Probably means something's wrong if it didn't have a panel. All right, so now panel has the items and it can instantiate the items. And if we go to our box, okay, how come it's not? Oh, I know why. Don't we need to do? Wait. Yeah, we need to do system.serializable. I believe that's why we need why the list is not showing up. Or there's another issue. Why? What's going? Got clicked. What? Okay, what's going on? Cannot convert from list to list. What? System collection generic list infinity PBR items is not assignable to. Oh. Am I using both instead of one? Oh. Thank you. I was using items. It's a list of singular item. What? Instead of one? So what I was actually doing, Jason, I think, was I have is a class called items, and we can see that public items test, and actually might want to use it now that I think about it. No, I don't want to use it, but there's a class called items, and that's I accidentally put items in here, and it was supposed to be just item singular here. But it's not actually how I want to do this. Because I actually want to be able to just drag these over. I want to drag these over, and each one of these itself has an item on it. And I think I want to drag, the object, the world objects over, not the inventory objects over. Yeah. So, and the reason being is there's no easy way on the box, here, or any box to prefabs box inventory. There's no easy way. Treasure box button. On the this is basically the controller, the box controller. I don't want to say that explicitly. Box manager. On the box manager, there's no easy way to set up the list of items. So I'm going to make this private, but I'm going to say public list game object available items. Because I will, what I'll do is on awake I will say set up available items, and that will go through the items for each game object in available items. Items dot add a clone. Oops. Object dot item. Wait a minute. Item object dot get component. Item world, I believe it named it. Item world dot item. And it's actually gonna be a clone of the item. And some checks here to make sure we don't mess things up. Or we can get fancier. Because if there's no item world on the object, then it's an invalid object. We're going to say we need there to be an item world on it. So, yeah, that's why I was thinking I can use a try get component here as well. But in my head, I was thinking how. So let me think. I will do, well, let's just do the first one. Try get component item world on object. Okay. Object. Try get component. Out var item world. Okay, so Jason's pointing out this returns a Boolean. We could say if that, then do this. And I think that's what we will do. So we'll say if we can get the component, we're going to do all that. What do I need to put in here? Out var item world. So we'll do that. Out var item world, and we'll say item world.item.clone. So if we have the item world, then assign it to this variable, and then items add a clone of the item that's on item world, which is attached to the object. And then continue. Because we're done here. But if that didn't happen, then we're going to go debug.log. This is going to be a red one because honestly, a item world is required by this, by any object in the box. We'll just say that. And return. Or we'll just that continue, but we'll just mark that, hey, heads up, because it's not going to break anything. We're just not going to add the item. It just means you add an item to, or an object to this list that that wasn't really available. So we're going to add one of each of these to the list. Now this is where, if you're making this in your own project, you would be able to make it randomized. You might even be able to write code to randomize the placement so that it's not all in the same top left, because that's what we're going to do for now. I might actually update the demo to add a function like that. But there's an option for like, hey, I want to ensure that there's always this quest item and that there's 2 or 3 other items, but what can they be? Who knows from this list? And you can do all your logic there on randomizing what's in the box at this point. but we're going to be explicit on the demo here. All right, so those are our items. Let's just see if that worked. Open treasure box. Okay, displaying items. It didn't work. Didn't error, but that's okay. Let's look at our box. Inventory items. We don't have the inventory items. Okay, so it didn't work at that point. What is it supposed to be doing? Are we doing everything we're supposed to be doing? Box manager says, do we ever call set up available items? Awake set up available items. Okay, let's just confirm that that's working as expected. That's going to be on the treasure box button. If we go into debug mode, I believe that means we can see items. Yes, okay, good. So we should see 3 items pop up here. We did. But they are empty. Why are they empty? They shouldn't be empty unless these are empty. Are these items empty? These items are empty. Oh, okay. So not item world, item inventory. Maybe. Do either of these have an item on them that makes sense? Huh. Oh. So, interesting. So, item world doesn't have an item on it at all. So I guess the point of this is when you instantiate an item into the world, like when you throw it, it will have whatever item was passed into it. In this case, it has none. So we need to set up that item. And that makes sense, actually. Now that I'm thinking it through in my head, that actually makes a lot of sense, because this is where we could populate the item. Let's see. Okay. Populate default item, and we're going to pass item world.item, and we will do that here, although I don't think we need to do that here. We should actually do it on the item world itself. So yeah, so we'll do item world.populate default item. And so in most cases, in many cases at least, gosh, no, we don't actually want to do that here because the item world doesn't matter. What we're really doing is saying these are the potential items, but we don't need to populate that here. We're never going to populate that here. So what we're really saying is, hey, these are the default items. We just want an easy way of dragging them in. But they don't have the item data. The item data lives in the items module that we have already created. So what we really need is item new item equals items. That's our items module dot get items module is being used, right? Now I'm confusing myself, so I need to take a step back. Items dot no data dot items. Right, where is my items list held? Where is my items list held? It's not in player. It's in data, I believe. In my demo scripts. Yeah, it's in data. All right. So new item is going to be data dot. I'm not using it up here. I'm not using it. Okay, using static infinity PBR dot inventory dot demo dot data. All right, that's where we're going. Okay, data dot items dot get item of item world dot item dot name object name. Right, I think that's how to do it. No, yeah, wait, no, because the item world doesn't have an I mean, so what? In my head, I'm thinking, okay, so realistically, the most logical way is just a list of strings, and because on our data object, we have our items, which is here, and we have these items, and they are they're just here, and this is the things we need to pass into it. By default, that's just what we're doing for this project. For a different project, it might be completely different. You would have your own setup system where, you might have a helmet of steel or of fire or whatever. And, you can hear that. Yes, there's an ukulele being practiced. And my microphone picks up everything. But what can you do? We have a small place. And so for this purpose, for what we are doing right now, the easiest thing to do is just get a list of strings. That's literally the easiest things to do. So what we're going to do instead is say list string. This is a great opportunity for a editor script that I'm not going to set up now. I'm going to get this working first and then come back and do that later. Or not do it at all, because really this is one of those things that's just easier to do for yourself, and how you set up the population of these boxes is going to be, hey, thanks Tech Dave for coming on and participating. It was fun. Glad you came. So what I was saying is, in the end, available items, new lists, list string is for some reason lowercase. I never understood why string is lowercase and the rest aren't. But string. Not that string. The reason why we're doing it like this, object name, is because every person's project is going to be set up differently. When I populate what's in the box, in my game, I know I'm going to be using prefixes and suffixes, and I know that I might, if maybe it's a sword, maybe there's an axe, maybe there's nothing at all, and what's in the box is going to depend on a lot of different factors. The player's level, there might be something explicit in the box, like a quest item, or maybe I know I want there to be at least 2 items in this, and one of them has to be a weapon. All of that logic is really dependent on the game itself. So for the scope of this module, I'm not going to go that deep because, I don't want to force somebody to have to do things a certain way. So in the scope of this module, the best way to say, hey, what's going to be in this box is just going to be the strings. Like, just say there's a chain armor, a leather armor, and a plate armor. And maybe I'll do a basic demonstration of randomization. Once all the items are there, I'll be like, hey, add 5 items from the items list. But in any other real project, it's going to depend on a lot of different things. And I don't want to pigeonhole people into thinking it has to be this way, because it shouldn't be this way. Is the reality is that it shouldn't be this way, but I don't know what way it's going to be for you and your project. So I'm just going to do the very basic and tell you need to do the explicit bespoke part for your project, because I don't know your project. I did ask the question about lowercase, why string is lowercase. And Jason says the reason why is all value types, in quotes, are lowercase, so int, float, etc. But string is actually really a reference type, so uppercase string does work as a capital, but has been overridden in its quality and other things to fake it to act like a value type. In that case, you could just use the fake string lowercase to make it look like a value type, but it doesn't. Okay. AKA a type that doesn't maintain a reference, instead just a value you pass around, like how int works. Interesting. I've often wondered that, because I know I can do string with like the uppercase too, and it has got methods and stuff attached to it. Okay, well, good to know. All right, so we're going to change this up, because we're now going to get a list of strings. And I'm going to change this later in after I get all these items set up with their own in-game versions. I only have the 3 right now. Then I will change this to make us basically randomize some stuff. But for now, I'm just going to do a list of strings just to get this working. And so for each string, none of that makes sense anymore. So for each string, we're going to go to item, new item equals, actually we just do item equals data dot items dot get item by this name, object name. All right, and item, get item, and then we're gonna do items, which is a list of items, add item flown. There, that's all we're going to do. So we're going to get a clone of that and add it to the list of items. And that's saying, hey, these are the items in this box. So for this box, treasure box button, let's just explicitly say that we have a leather armor, oops, and a chain armor, and a plate armor. I believe those are the 3 different names: plate, armor, chain, leather armor. There it is. So I could have gotten those from the world, dragging it over, but I'm going to boil it down to a simpler thing, which is just for now explicitly typing out those 3 words or names. Got an error here where it's what's being null referenced. We have item. Maybe data isn't populated yet. That's possible. Actually, that's probable, because we're doing it in awake. So this is where I'm going to do it in update. And if is set up, then return. Otherwise, set up available items, and is set up equals true, and we need that to be up here. Private bool is set up equals false. Essentially, we're saying instead of doing this on awake, we're going to do it on update. And then if we don't have data, oops, then return. And if no data dot items, then return. So if either of those aren't yet set up, then we're going to return. I think what we're really running into is that data isn't set up yet, because that's set up on awake. And so this awake was just called before that awake. So we're going to do our awakes. Then in the first update loop, we'll end up doing this setup item, and we'll do setup equals true. So that should work. find out. Yeah, it seemed to work. Let's confirm with the debug mode, which should show us our items. Sure enough, it's showing us our items. All right, so now this box does have 3 items in it. There's another option. There's another way. Okay, hold on. Let me check this first, and then... Okay, so it kind of worked. Kind of didn't work. The objects did get put in, but they all got put on top of each other. All right, baby steps. Let's check out where those objects are. Where are the objects? Where are the objects? Enjoy objects. So these are the objects. They were supposed to be in different positions, but they didn't get there. We'll have to figure out why. But they got instantiated, so that's something. All right. There's another way to do that flag. And that flag that we're talking about is the isSetup is true. What is the other way? Because I would like to know the other option, because I'm pretty convinced that this is not the best way. As I get deeper into more cool kid coding, Hey, everybody, I'm going to trademark cool kid coding, because I like alliteration. And in my college stand-up comedy class, the k sound is funny. So cool kid coding is a great name for a series of coding tips on how to make yourself a cool coder. If you want to be a cool coder like all the cool kids, you should check out coolkidcoding.com. Trademark. Copyright. Me. Discord. Yields. Yields has always confused me, and whiles scare me because I'm afraid of infinite loops. And then I think about Apple on one infinite loop, although I don't think that's their address anymore. But it used to be, and I like to go there from time to time because I live close to there, or I did back in the day, really close to there. What is this? Enumerator start while it's not set up. Try to set up, which sets up to true. Otherwise, return null. So this could be an infinite loop, but an infinite loop that won't break my system. Is that what we're saying? If I throw this in here. So, try to set up. And that's set up available items. While not is set up. By default, it's not set up. So while it's not set up, we're just going to do nothing. But if I'm hearing this correctly, or if I'm understanding an enumerator correctly, this is what you just said in the chat here, that it runs a loop coroutine in start until it's done, then stops running. So unlike update, which is always runs, this will only run once until it resolves, and then it stops running. So the benefit is that this is a coroutine that will keep running. The rest of the code will keep going. Right? But this will keep running until it returns, until this is set up. So we still need the Boolean. Of course, we could make this return true or false, but then we wouldn't be able to know later, like if we did add something to the update, then that needs required. So we need to keep this as outside of that. Okay, so on start, yeah, that's what I was going to do that, but then I there's a chance at some point I might say, hey, I need another update, and so I don't want to put it in the inline, I believe. Okay. That seems to make sense to me. Let's check it out. Open treasure box. All right, that worked. So I don't want to end the stream yet until I get this working. My goal was to get the boxes working, and so let me figure out why the heck these didn't get populated correctly. Displaying objects. So they did display the 3 objects. So that's cool. Okay, so for each item, display object. Okay, object prefab, and the item I have to pass into it. Yeah, because for this we are taking the prefab that we're going to display, pass that item class or whatnot into it. So we're instantiating the object, get the inventory spot, and then the grid button spot. So that's a point of failure, perhaps. Let's just pause this. And for our objects, if we look at the, do you see? I'm not seeing it. Because, okay, so not there. It wouldn't be on the object then. It would be... Yep, no. See, I'm getting lost in my own thoughts now. Where's it? Right here. Shoot. Add the object to the spots in the game and add the object to the list of active objects. Let's check those out. Panel. Okay, inventory objects. We have the 3 objects: leather armor, chain armor, plate armor. So that part's fine. And do we see... Those are just items. Just a list of items. So what we should see is a couple things. We should see all our grids. And each one has 12. So we're doing the same 8 by 12. And we can visualize those here, 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 here. All these grids. Objects. And they are in the right spots. And do they have their screen points set? They do have their screen points set. Okay. And then on our panel, the other thing is these spots. Those are all set. And they are listing that the in-game object is plate armor, which is the 3rd one we created. None of them were likely to have the other 2 because it was covered up by the plate armor. So the issue must be occurring here. Let's instead work this the other direction. When we load our inventory here, we're fitting it, and that's where we're actually going wrong. Aha! Because for the player inventory, we fit it without the inventory being on. We're saying, hey, we picked up a new item, we're adding it to the inventory. Can it fit right here? And if it can, take the spots out of that. So we need to do that to the box manager. When we load set up available items, for each one, first get the item. Before we add it, we're going to say, oh, shoot. Property drawers. Jason, no, you're getting a touchy subject for me. No. So inspectors and property drawers. Property drawers are one of those things that I realize I need to learn, but I just haven't done it yet. So yes, most likely there would be value in me learning them, but I just haven't done it yet. And didn't you say a couple weeks ago that you were going to make a tutorial on property drawers? Did you say that? I'm not sure. You may have said that. Somebody said that, I think, because I was thinking in my head, ooh, I should watch that one and learn from it. Okay, cat-like coding. I will have to check that out. Because, yeah, property drawers is something that I think I understand. Oh, property blocks. Oh, then you got busy. Yeah, well, property drawers is definitely something I think I need to learn because of, well, things and all the things I've been doing. But I tried once and I was like, I don't want to get sidetracked, so I stopped. Because I can go down rabbit holes and I don't want to go down all the rabbit holes. Like in this case, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole yet. So, mostly because I'm getting hungry now and I would like to eat food soon, and but I really want to get this working. Okay, so spots. Okay, box manager. So we don't need to do that here. Okay. We're not doing it in the setup item. We're doing it here. Right? Or are we? Oh, shoot. This throws a wrench into things. This throws a wrench into things. Oh, thank you. You linked it in the Discord? Thank you for that. For anyone watching, this is the tutorial he was talking about. So I'll have to check that out. So the wrench that was thrown into it, I'll walk it through. So spots is the thing that we have to keep a record of where each object is in the spots. And on the player side of things, when the player fits, we're basically saying, hey, this player has its spots, and so now the box manager needs spots too. Because as I said early in the panel manager itself doesn't care. It doesn't care what spots it's going to be displaying. Or rather, panel doesn't care what spots it's going to be displaying. It's got spots and it's got a list of inventory. It needs both of those things to work properly, but it doesn't care what spots or what list of inventory items it gets. And so box manager needs spots as well. It's got a list of items. Ooh, what just happened? I don't know what I did, but oh gosh, what happened? I don't know what happened. Anyways, so panel has a list of items called inventory items. Box manager has a list of items called, we'll call this inventory items. Inventory items, keep it the same. And now it's going to need a list of spots too. It needs spots. It needs its own spots, just like a player gets spots. This is going to need spots, so public spots, public. We'll say public for now. Spots. Is that right? Yeah. Might be able to be private. Probably could be private, but I want to be able to see it in the inspector for now. So now, okay, now when we set up this, we're going to do very similar to the player add items to inventory. This is essentially what we're doing for the most part. So spots has to be set up. We need to see if we can fit the item. And then we do all that. So if that's the case, then chances are this can be put somewhere else, and we can call it from the same place twice. Can this be moved to spots? Well, this part can. This part can. If we make whatever we're calling into a bool, then this part can. Items, if we pass in. So what we're really doing, okay, let's see. If I move all of this into the spots, items, so if it's false, return. If it's true, items add a clone. And we still need these spots X and Y out. So it's going to return these two spots. Spots on a leopard are called rosettes. Black panthers do in fact have spots, but they're just really, yes, I knew that part. I knew that the Black Panthers did have spots. I did not know that they were actually called rosettes, however. Rabbit hole, Jason. Rabbit hole. I'm trying to concentrate, man. So I'm going to move this into spots. Not into spots setup, but I'm going to say... Am I going to move this to spots? Maybe I will later. Let's just... Because this part doesn't get moved into spots, does it? No. No, this part doesn't get moved into spots. I don't even know if I need this part for the box. So really it's only this part that moves in spots. I don't. So I'm just gonna copy this all for now. I don't think I'm gonna be using it all. I might move it later. Okay, we're going to have to clean this up later, but let's just get it working for now and clean it up later. Okay. We only have to do this part once, so we'll move that there. Balancing out helpfulness with whimsy and sidetracks. That's true, because your powers are immense, and as we all know, with great power comes great ability to make a lot of money. Comes great abilities. Not responsibilities, abilities. Because if you have so much power, you don't have to respond to anything if you don't want to. You're powerful, so you only have potential responsibilities, your choice, but you have abilities. That's objective. So with great power comes great abilities. Whether they're responsibilities is up to you whether you want to actually do that. You're powerful. No one can tell you what to do. See? Works. All right. So setup is going to be done there. We only need to do that once. And then, so spot X, spot Y. Spots can fit item. Can we fit this item? Yes and no. If we can fit this item, okay, then we will do the rest. And the rest includes spots, add item to inventory grid. Why are we using last item added in player? Get last item. What was my point of all this? That could be null? Not sure. Okay, so this is the part we'll put up here. And then last item added is inventory items. Inventory items count -1. I mean, that is longer than saying last item added. That's probably what I was thinking. Whoa, not that. For now, let's just be do that. All right, so what we're doing is we are first checking to see if it can fit. If it does fit, then we'll get these two values out. Oh, on Twitch, there's more spam. All right. You'd think they'd be able to stop that. It's not like it's... there's some pretty specific copy in that string that they sent on Twitch. Anyways, get those, and if it is able to fit, then we will add it, and then we will tell those items that their spots are these spots. I believe that's all we need to do. If I set up the rest properly, then I shouldn't have to do anything else. That was the whole point of the last week of work on this, was to make it so that I could add a box and magically it worked. Well, set those up. Now this part's not working. But hey, at least wait. Last. So this is a question that, not question, but a thing that getting the last item of an inventory of a list has always been tricky for me. For some reason, things like last never seem to work. So this is a method I wouldn't... are you suggesting that it's better to do caching the result would be inventory, or, whoa, not select all, don't do that. Item last equals that, and then just say last, like that. Last inventory or last item added. Okay. So that's slightly faster, I would assume, doing it once instead of 3 times. So it's working to the point where it's displaying them properly. It's not yet allowing me to pick them up, though. We'll find out. So this is saying it got clicked, 3-0, and let's just check. This should be 0-0 up here. This should be the most, yeah. Okay, so button got clicked. So then on panel, and these buttons are linked to the box panel, got clicked. So this panel got clicked. And got clicked. I just saw it, and then it went away. Anyways, okay, let's do it this way. Panel got clicked. Okay. So one of these is not working. So we don't have a held item, so this will return false. Not true, because we weren't able to put the held item, because we don't have one. So if there's an item held, we'll return, but there's no item held, so that can't be it. This is probably the spot. Oh, that could be it. Maybe. I'm not sure. There was a few things I was trying with lists, and I was like, and then moved on with my life, you know. Maybe it was something else. It may not have been last specifically, but it may have been another one. So this could be where it's having an issue. So if that's the case, what we need to see is whether those are filled. So let's just debug it. Debug.log not filled, and we'll see if that's the case. Open treasure box. We should see not filled there. We should see it not here. Okay, so that's what's going on. So for some reason the spots... Oh, do we populate the spots on the panel? Do we tell the panel, hey panel, the spots are the box spots? Because the right spots are these right here. These are the right spots, and we can see, is this spot filled with an item? Yes. In-game item. Is that what we're looking for? What are we looking for? Is filled. Is that something I can see when debug mode? Is filled, is filled, is filled. What are we doing here? Ah, if the object name, that's right, is null or empty, then we're saying it's not filled. It's only filled if that's not empty. And in this case, object name is indeed filled. So what I'm guessing is on the panel, spots are, there we go, empty. Yeah, so the in-game object is correct, but this is not, and that's because I think we are not passing spots over when we set up all of this. When we set up the available items, where are we doing that? It's not here. It's when we load the panel. Set up other panel. Panel manager, set up other panel, blah, 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 blah. Aha. Spots. That's what we need to do. We need to include that in this right here. Spots. And where do we put that here? And panel dot spots equals spots. All right, that should do the trick because we weren't actually passing our spots over there. And I'm going to go back to, I see your comments over there, Jason, and I had a feeling that you might have a thing to say about what I was doing. I didn't say anything just to see. I didn't want to. Okay, there we go. Now we are talking. Oh, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? It's beautiful because it works. Because it does what I wanted it to do. And it does it in a way where I didn't have to do tons of extra code. And does this work? This is the moment of truth, really. Okay, well, we still have to do the handling of multiple inventories, but it kind of worked, right? It passed it to the player, and the player inventory is up there. That's the issue. But it passed it, and it totally worked. So, yeah, thank you, Jason. It is nice. I'm very happy with myself right now. Oh, that was weird. Well, that's probably because the cameras are all... No, that's normal. That's what's supposed to do. Anyways, so there's still more to do. But before I sign off, I'm going to sign off soon and eat some food. But I want to see... Jason was saying, and I think this was in reference to my is filled bit, which was on the spots, was it? Yes. This line right here. Instead of is null or empty, use is null or white space. It does the same thing, but also counts a bunch of spaces, tabs, carriage returns with no characters the same as empty. Ah. Which the normal one would consider as a value. Good to know. So instead of saying is null or empty, is null, ooh, not in null, is null or white space. Good to know. if I had taken the time to look at this, I probably would have thought about that, but I didn't take the time. Thank you for that tip, Jason. So I am going to sign off now because I got this working to a point, not quite where I want it to be, but I can do that after I eat lunch. So the whole point, just to recap everything, and if you're still watching, please like and subscribe and all that nice stuff. Did we get to 1,000? I don't think we got to 1,000. We had 50 more YouTube subscribers to go. Let's see. YouTube Studio. We got a couple extra. Still need 48 to get to 1,000. And it shouldn't take long at this rate. So, like and subscribe if you're watching. Thank you. And then the recap is that we're working on this module, by we I mean me, working on this module, an inventory module. It will require the items and dictionary modules, which you can find on the asset store. Load that up real quick. If you go to my page on the asset store, you'll find these modules. There's a whole bundle. You can get them all in the bundle. That's the one you should be getting. But if you have the items and the dictionaries module installed inside your project, then this inventory will work. It will require those two. And it's supposed to be a visual inventory. So where you can pick things up, move things around like this, like so. You can equip them, unequip them. Some of that is bespoke code you'll have to do yourself, but you can pass it to other players in your portraits. You can move them all around and do all that fancy stuff. Technically, you'll be able to open a treasure box and drop it in. Okay, technically, I mean you can. That's the whole point of that. So that, again, I'm going to show that once more because I can't close this box, so I'm not going to show it once more. But you can do that, which is really cool. And that's very exciting. So you can do all that stuff. All of it is, all of the stuff I'm doing is really for my own game, but I'm making it for you too, so that in my game you can do that. And if we still have the YouTube video up, it looks like I don't, but it's based off the Might and Magic 678 style of inventory display and such that you could do there. So my next step after eating some food offline will be to add a close button to the treasure box and handle what happens if you load the player inventory. Basically hide the treasure box inventory. Don't destroy it, but hide it, and then when you close it so that a player can essentially, in the same way that I am taking, if I take an object here, pick it up, and then go to open treasure box, I can drop this here. I'd like to be able to say, pick this up and give it to the player, or open the player inventory and then choose where to put it, and so on. And that's the whole point, because I can give these to the player just fine right now, but if I want to choose where to put it, then I need to be able to open the player inventory here and have that one go away and manage it like that. So that's the next thing. And another thing for a different day is to use smooth damp with the drag, so the clothes will rotate and swing relative to how fast you drag them around. That is pretty cool. So that's part of that's part of the whole point of making this visual. Somebody asked me I demoed this last Wednesday night on a group, and someone said, why do you want it to be 3D? Why not just a sprite? And the whole point was, well, in your game, maybe you have a wand or something or a staff that has a glowing sphere on the end, and you want that light to cast on the other objects, right? Or you want to see it 3D, or as Jason's just suggesting, as you move it, it moves around like you're actually carrying it. And those are all the reasons why to use this type of inventory instead of another one. It's very, in my opinion, it's very interactive and immersive. I mean, obviously, this is not a VR game where you're pulling it out with your controller, although that would be cool too. But the idea that, I am picking this up and I am dragging it over here to my player, and I click here and it, suddenly on the player, and maybe even the player then looks down at themselves and says, nice, or something like that. It's much more interactive than just a list of items like in Skyrim or something like that. Yeah, and it's just plain cool. It's cool, and it's gonna look cool. So I won't add it to this demo per se, although maybe I will actually. I'm trying to keep the modules to be very vanilla, where they have the basics, but they don't have the rest, and instead I'll add like tutorials on how to do the rest. So maybe I'll do that. But I fully agree. That's a great idea, and I actually hadn't thought of that specifically. I probably would have eventually gotten to it, but I actually hadn't thought about making these react to the motion. So it's a cool idea. So there we go. Thanks everyone for signing in and joining me today. And Jason, thank you as always for your advice. I hope other people also learned from what we did today. As an intermediate coder myself, I'm always learning, and I hope that I can learn with people and that everyone's getting value from these. So thank you very much, and I will see you all another time. If you are watching, for the 5 of you who aren't Jason, check out the YouTube page for Unity3D.College and check us out on a live stream tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Other AMs or PMs, other times of the world. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.